Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below this video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Sarah Griffiths, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, Austin Whitsitt, John Kays, Tommy Swagnuts, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bo Snail, Samson, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, theflatearthchannel.com, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
I'm trying to turn a radius into a curved line, and trying to get a measurement from a curved, an angle measurement from a curved surface.
Are they saying you could get an angle measurement from the curved surface exactly, or kind of dancing around it?
Well, he put a drawing that he had made of a triangle with a curved bottom on a sphere, which, you know, you're not getting an angle measurement with. That was, I don't know. It was just nonsensical. It was like putting a dunce hat on a stick figure, you know. That's all it looked like.
So two of the triangle lines were straight, one was curved?
Yeah, not being a triangle, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of discounts that, right?
Oh yeah, it was pretty sad. They were just trying to, I think it was a coronavirus trying to equivocate between a arc and a chord. You know, normal tricks.
Interesting. A chord is a straight line and an arc is a curved line.
Yeah, but they, you know, like for a circle equal altitude, for the circle to exist, you need a radius, you know.
From the center of the GP, from the center of the GP to the observer is a perpendicular, two lines. It's considered a right angle.
Right, then you make that circle around that position, and you know you start your triangulation from that. But they're wanting to say that.
This is from their own books. This is going to be a hard wall that they're going to die on because it's in their own books that GP to the observer is a radii. And it's in their own books that say that it's a right angle from the zenith to the GP to the observer, perpendicular. So this can be a hard one for them because if someone just does a little research, they're going to see that they're bucking their own side.
When did you guys start?
Started
4 minutes ago.
I thought you meant subject matter. I was going to say we started with Globers and we ended up with anti-flat earthers. So when you say they buck their own side after doing a bit of research, that's the transition, isn't it? To anti-flat earther.
Yeah, that's now that you summarize it. Yeah, I could see. I missed the show. I had to go get the truck work done, so I could sense the transition once you say that.
By the way, Nate,
Go on.
I'm just gonna say I was jumped on. I was trying to see if my I got a mic check, but nobody was on your Discord or Betty's Discord. The only one I could get on was Gem Pandas to get a mic check because I'm in a bad reception area. Boy, they had some words for you, Nathan. What I said was, I was like, wow, I recognize all these names here. So this is where you all go? Been slapped around at the Flat Earth debate, and I see you all hiding over here. They claim they're not hiding. They've come over to your show. Gem Panda said at least 17 times he owes me one.
Why would Nathan owe him anything? That's ridiculous.
Oh, I said it's an open door. You could come on. He's like, well, we have a debate show too. I said, no, you don't. You have no debate. It's been over.
So that means I could go to a restaurant and say, hey, I've been here 100 times. Now it's your turn to come to my house. I'm cooking.
Yeah, but they got nothing cooking over there. It's just a hangout. The hangout club to just pat themselves on the back saying it'll be okay. We can still make believe we're on a sphere.
So kind of like where they show the pictures in the ocean where all the plastic hangs out.
Yeah. But it was an interesting, every single name, I was like, wow, I remember him, I remember him, I remember him. So this is where they are.
Yeah.
It's where Nathan throws the removed heads of his opponents. Throws them over in Jim Panda's server.
I think more of it as therapy for them because they're fighting reality. So they got to go to a place where other people can't call them on that and be reaffirmed in their non-reality.
Exactly, but they talk as if, they still got that pride like they're in the winning position.
Yeah, there were ex-Nazis in South America holding meetings too.
Well, the thing is, if you got consensus behind you, you would be over here preaching how you have the winning point. We don't have consensus behind us. We're not going to go somewhere where we're going to be drowned out by lunatics.
They don't have consensus behind them either. We're talking about anti-flat earthers now. They don't have consensus behind them. They're not going to seek solace from a guy who says, well, of course boats go over the physical edge called Earth curve at the horizon. That's what the globe is, right? Boats go over the horizon. That's what proves it. Is that going to bring any solace to an anti-flat earther? It's going to make them twitch when they hear what they're not in line with. That would be the majority opinion that we're on a sphere with a horizon that boats go over. And we've debunked all that, and they know it. They've got to provide convoluted explanations within terrestrial refraction paradoxes that need to be understood, and the people around them need to understand those paradoxes as they are asserted without contesting them. Now, your average normie, the consensus that is, doesn't align with the people we deal with. They don't align with anti-flat earthers. Far from it. They're in many ways more similar to us. Anti-flat earthers brace against the globe also, just in a very different way, whilst deluding themselves that they're still on it.
Well, that's my point. Like, if they had consensus behind them, they would be here. That's what they used to think they had. That's what I thought I had at one point in time.
Exactly. They get here thinking they've got consensus behind them. They assert the consensus viewpoint, find that it's incorrect and can be debunked, and then they find themselves with a choice. Either acceptance of the reality that they're faced with, that is the obvious, observable, measurable and navigatable flat plane that we actually dwell atop, or want to think that you can remain in line with the quote-unquote consensus. You can't. That's not one of the choices. The other choice is anti-flat earthism, and that is where you will go if you choose to retain your globe faith. It just turns into a religion because you're overtly aware of the faith that is required and the debunkings that go along it, which will not give you solace from any normie. who has the consensus view behind him that Earth curve edges are represented by the horizon and so on and so forth. Or that we have 15 degrees an hour drift because Earth's turning underneath stuff. Those are consensus viewpoints that we debunk and are told we wouldn't expect to see drift, and you and your reference frames are ruined. Definitely not got the consensus behind that, have you, Simon Dan? Breaking up, Neil.
I said they deny that it's been debunked.
Yeah, they try and debunk the debunking by going against the original claim. In the case of Coriolis, the claim from a globe and the consensus viewpoint is that we've got Coriolis effect. That's the consensus view. Now, if you say to any Norman on the street, do you know Earth's got Coriolis? They go, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, everyone might not say that, but you know what I'm getting at. That is the consensus view. Earth has Coriolis effect. So on any mainstream channel, you can look it up. It's, you know, easy to come across the claim that Earth has Coriolis effect because it's claimed to be turning. As soon as you point out that means Earth's turning underneath stuff at the claimed 15 degrees an hour and it would shorten flight times, it doesn't happen, they start telling us that our reference frames that we haven't got and the globe claim to demonstrate drift are ruined. Like, we don't have any reference frames. The only one claiming them is the globe. You're in opposition to the globe now. You think you're arguing with me. You're not. So yeah, the two choices are flat Earth and the acceptance thereof, or anti-flat Earth. That's your two choices once you've fallen down this rabbit hole. There is no going back to the consensus viewpoint of a globe. You don't have that if you're an anti-flat earther. You can't have that. And if you try and retain it, you get it taken away if you get here.
So it seems like Virus got his head chopped off by his own words again.
What, bent radii?
Yeah.
This is what you were
I
discussing at the beginning of the show, right? The arc and chord line being convoluted, right, John?
Yeah, he just doesn't know the difference between an arc and a chord, or he won't admit the difference between the two anyway.
Yeah, because the difference is where triangulation fails on a sphere. Go ahead, 10th, sorry.
No, I was going to say I missed the after show yesterday because I had to do errands, but I saw the diagram he put up, and then obviously the little clip. But doesn't he brag about being good at math and all that?
I don't know what he brags about. I just know where he's wrong.
Yeah, he said before he loves math, and he tutored. I think he's a tutor.
Intellectual. Tutor what?
Not tutor what? Tutor, not tutor what?
Tutor what? What does it mean, tutor?
Tutor what?
Who? What you? What
tutor what? That's his nickname. I'm going to call him Tutor what from now on.
I think he's an intellectual.
There's, like I was sharing with John, all anyone in the audience has to do is don't even take our word for it. We asked you to do the same research we did. When you go do the same research we did, you're going to find out they're the ones with their celestial navigation or astro navigation. And there was not even one book or manual written by a flat earther about the sextant. I couldn't find one. Now, I may write one, but I couldn't find one. And so I started digging into those. And when I started digging into those, it was there that the gold nuggets were. And that it's a angle measuring device. It's a right angle. It's a perpendicular. The star's GP to the observer is a radii parallel with the other radii of the other circle of equal altitudes. This is where it all came out of. And now we present it, and they're going crazy.
Well, here's the thing. This is what I gather from them. They think it's being done on the globe. They think you're out of your mind. It's being done in the globe because everybody knows we're on a sphere.
Yeah, that's it. That's their full argument.
Correct.
Well, that's just chanting.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't think you have to research the sextant after you hear a debate like between a flat earther that understands the sextant argument and a globe earther. They're in violation of basic geometry we all learned in like grade school, middle school. They have to violate those, geometric certitudes.
Yeah, they have to deny what a triangle requires to be a triangle. That's right. Very basic stuff.
Well, that's the ease of it. That's why it popped up so easily when anyone does the research. And I popped the slide in Master B. Let me know when you have it up.
Well, no, I just want to say that if someone was listening, they wouldn't have to go and research the material. They just have to know that the radius of a circle is a straight line to know that they're full of crap.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just you want to allow people, you want to tell them what you did and what others have done. Brian's looked into it, Mitchell's looked into it. Obviously, I've looked into it. Others have looked into it, and they find the same thing. So have at it.
Okay, I've got your slide up.
Yeah, okay, so here you've got an image from one of the navigation books, obviously. These things are online, by the way. So you've got the intercept method. Okay, so the intercept method is when you have to guess where you are at sea before you even shoot the star, and because of the logbooks and the dead reckoning. So you're kind of in this area. So you just say, okay, I think I'm over here. That's when you shoot the star with the sextant right afterwards. And then you say, oh, okay, well, where I thought I was doesn't match my observed altitude. So I need to make a correction. So then you make the corrections, and that's the intercept method is another right angle to the right angle of where the GP meets the Earth. So you can see the zenith position of the star is directly over the Earth somewhere. So that's its highest point at that moment, second you took the shot. And then it makes a right angle to you. But then you've got to do another right angle to it to cross, as you can see where the sailboat is. So how do you put those boxes in directionality? The bearing is the azimuth, starts from the north, clockwise. And then the star is thousands of miles away at a right angle to you. Now, how can you have a right angle on a sphere?
How can you have any angle?
Exactly. No, exactly. That's why the sextant is an angle measuring device. And what you clearly stated is that's all you need to know. I'll put up that other picture, Nathan, to show how they take this and use it on their globe. I'll be right back.
Have you ever argued with someone and felt embarrassed for their argument? Because that's kind of where I'm getting at with them. I feel embarrassed for them.
Yeah, that's a problem. I described it to QE as the people who were alongside him when he was debating some fundy about stars going in opposite directions. There's almost too much empathy on this side of the argument. People are concerned and embarrassed for their arguments, and kind of when they're shown to be stupid, they kind of want to let the person beg the question a little bit and maybe, make it so that they don't seem so stupid making the argument that's died on its arse immediately. And it's like, that empathy for me was eroded away first or second year of this debate.
Yeah, but they go on with that star rotation. Even my son, he's like, but they all going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Counterclockwise and clockwise aren't directions, though.
The street example is always going to be the best. You're watching traffic and you're pointing south and the traffic is going east to west. You cross over the road and you're pointing north. Is it then going west to east?
Yep, I agree.
No, it isn't going. It's going in the exact same direction. You've just turned around.
No, I agree with you. I know. Yes, to the illustration.
Well, I like the car one where you're driving in your car and the passenger side wheel is going counterclockwise and the driver's side wheel is going clockwise from your position.
Perfect.
But they're both.
That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's genius. Exactly. You look left, anti-clockwise. Look right, clockwise. Why? Well, because it's dependent on which way you're looking.
But they're both going in the same direction. You know, that's. Or you'd be spinning in circles. You know. I don't know. It's just embarrassing now. Like it really is embarrassing.
These are globe arguments.
Hey, everybody.
It's not the individual that, should be embarrassed by this. They've been deceived. We all have. So, personally, the need for empathy, I'm just justifying why I don't have any, really. But it kind of disappears when you understand that these are globe arguments. I know you shouldn't ascribe the argument to some ethereal model when it's an individual making the argument. But when Q was saying, maybe Pondy yesterday, when he was like, no, I don't think it's the case that they just need to beg the question at the beginning of their argument. They're not that bright. They do beg the question at the beginning of their argument, and then they actually do think that stars are rotating in opposite directions, which they're not. Well, I disagree. It's like this argument is prevalent because it's been, somebody at some stage, even if they've not intentionally done it for that reason, has put it out there. And like all of the arguments, it works in their paradigm because it begs the question immediately. Well, all of their arguments start like that. That's why it's become prevalent. So it might not be the case that the end user understands how the structure of the argument is so useful to them. That is still why it's become prevalent, in my opinion. Now, that's kind of hive mind rather than ascribing it to some godlike model that's decided that this is the argument that will help me keep alive. It's not like that. I'm not going to anthropomorphize the globe in that way, but it is a globe argument, that is used by many and is prevalent because it begs the question immediately.
I got that picture up, Nick. Hey, Brian.
Hey, how are things then? How is everybody? Yeah, I just before Tank goes on to the picture, very quickly. Anywhere in the world that you stand and look north, the stars will be going over your right shoulder and heading for your left shoulder. When you look south, just turn around and look south, the stars are coming over your left shoulder and heading for your right shoulder. But they're still coming from the east. It's like, it couldn't be any more simple. I have no empathy for it.
Me neither.
That's
Me
what
neither.
frustrates you, my son.
They're trying to hold on to.
I mean, it's so basic.
Yeah, they're just trying to hold on to a reason to assume antipodal positioning when viewing the stars. So at this point, I'm looking up towards the North Star and North Pole. But when I'm down there, it's like their logic is already geared to the down there bottom part of a hemisphere antipodal from when they started with the example. So that's why they cling on to it. It so nicely rolls off the tongue with a heliocentric description attached to it. If you start off by just saying, well, you're just begging the question. You're saying that when you're viewing this, you're going to the bottom of a sphere? Yeah, that's you assuming that you're going to the bottom of a sphere? Hello? So even if you were right...
Hello.
Wow.
I'm agreeing with you, Nathan. They're crackers.
Thank you very much.
That was great. Do that again.
It was perfect timing, whoever said it. Becky, good to have you.
I was waiting for the moment to agree with you, and I absolutely agree.
Cool. I got your slide
So
up, by the way,
Becky,
Ted.
what happened when I left? What happened when I left Gem Pandas today? What'd they
Oh,
say?
they just tried to rip me apart like ravenous wolves and abused me and attack me for making a very well-rounded, educated decision on my life. Apparently now I'm some kind of irrational goon and I should be, like, struck.
Wow.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
that's what
it's
happens on
hard
Gem
to
Pandas.
speak to people that are irrational, that are calling me irrational.
No, that's a
I hope we're
projection.
not like on some kind of show here. Are we in the after show now, or?
Live show starts in 5.
Oh, good. So we're not live yet. Yeah,
We are
it's
recorded.
really difficult to talk to people who are just crazy. I'm not even in the same country as these people, and they're attacking me.
They're not in India as well, then?
No, I'm not. So what's the show? Well, I mean, obviously we're gonna battle the Earth debate. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, generally, that's what we do.
It's been going on for a long time now. These people aren't listening, are they?
Becky, the battle's over. They don't come here no more. That's why when I went to Gems today and I started reading the names, they're all the usual suspects. They don't come here no more.
Mm-hmm.
But people are watching.
I-
You know, while we're talking about our opponents who verbally oppose us, they're not the majority and they're not in consensus. So when I have an audience, that audience is going to be made up of the majority consensus people. That is because that is everybody. Now, regardless of where they stand when they're viewing, they might be a flat earther, they might be an anti-flat earther. More likely than not, they are actually just a bog standard glober. The unspoken majority in this debate. They're not going to be in the chat. They're not going to be in the Discord server. They're not going to make themselves known, but they are definitely watching. So those are the reasons and whys and wherefores of why the anti-flat earth opposition have to take the stand that they do, because they definitely know that the majority of the Western world will get here and hear our anti-globe arguments and recognise them for what they are. Something's got to be done. Well, they wouldn't still be doing it if no one was watching.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, I was just having a discussion with them about another topic that wasn't flat Earth. And in the end, one of them came in and was in a rage and was raging at me and calling me irrational, which was really crazy. I was trying to calmly explain my position and my decision and why I've made these decisions. And then one of them came through and was so aggressive and so vicious and so irrational, and we're not even in the same country. So if he was concerned about me being some kind of health hazard, well, then I'm in Australia and he's in America. So why the hell did he have to attack me?
We can't talk about that, though. Seriously, there's rules.
So crazy. But I'm the one, apparently, like my air quoting here, that is irrational. Like I am being so irrational. I'm being a critical thinker. I'm thinking things through. I want to do the best thing for everybody involved in my life. I'm thinking about my family, my child. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm not being selfish. I'm not being irrational. I'm being sensible, but I'm being attacked. And I think that it's just the case. As soon as you're in a minority, whether it's flat Earth or whatever it is, people are going to attack you, and they're the ones that become irrational. Like if we think about things
Becky,
critically and we take away mainstream media and we take away propaganda and we think about things rationally, we're coming up with our own conclusions, which may not be what the consensus is.
Becky, my name is Brian. How are
Hello.
you doing? Hello, Becky. How
Hello,
are you doing?
Brian. Hello.
Hello, how are you? Don't waste
Doing
your time
well.
going over there. Don't go over there. Stop going there. There's nothing there. Only frustration and idiots. Don't waste your time with them. You'll be happier. Honestly. I'm at this since
The way I think
2015.
about it, those kind of rooms, there's one or two people in there that aren't them and that are lonely and they're looking for company and things like that. So I don't know. I think people like us are necessary in those places. We need to come up in there and speak how we feel. I mean, we talk about echo chambers and stuff like that, and I guess they are an echo chamber, but there's always someone in that. If you have a room of like 20 people or 30 people, there could be that one person that's in there that you can
I
reach.
agree with you,
But
Becky. I agree
but-
with you. Hold on, Brian.
yeah,
One
but
second.
they- okay.
When I used to go to the Mardi Gras with this guy. He was just a preacher that used to walk from state to state. He walked across all the states to collect shoes for people in Mexico. Anyway, he used to go to the Mardi Gras, and it was bad over there. And they said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "Because if everybody else has a voice here, then I'm going to have a voice for Jesus here." So I think Becky's right. Even on these channels, we have to have a voice there.
Hmm.
I would say that they're only alive because we go there. If we weren't going there, they would die. They exist only because of us. That whole
Absolutely.
side
If there
only
wasn't flat
exists due
earthers,
to us.
there would, yeah, that's absolutely a fact. And even Jem Panda says that. He says that we need each other. Like in this kind of debate, in this discussion, if there's no flat earthers and there's no people defending the globe, then there's no discussion. So
Well, we
in a
don't
way,
need
we
them.
need
Incorrect.
each other.
We don't need them at
No,
all.
we don't.
They need us.
Nope.
The other way around.
That's right.
Yeah, we become an education, though. We don't need it.
That is
They
true.
need
They do need
us.
us. Here's cheers to that. We are special.
Yeah,
Let's admit
hold
that.
on. Just let me just draw the distinction for you, though, because I think what the reason you've just met with vehement opposition that they need us, we don't need them, is because we stand in opposition to the Western worldview that they're on a sphere. They stand in opposition directly to flat Earth only. Now, as a byproduct, they also, in many instances, also stand in opposition to the globe. But the point is that they are anti-flat earthers. So without flat earthers, there's nothing for them. We don't need
Yeah.
them. We don't need anti-flat
That's
earthers.
true.
We're not fighting anti-flat earthers. We find ourselves fighting flat earthers because they foist their position upon us when it's not even a globe position. So we end up having to address the address to the address because of anti-flat earthers. But we don't need that. They need us. Quite the contrary.
I'd like to ask you a question, Nathan, because you're probably a very famous flat earther, I must say. Is any of your understanding of flat Earth got anything to do with the Bible, or are you? Can you answer that,
No,
please?
not at all.
Okay, because my belief, and I will call it a belief because I really can't go into a debate. My belief is the Earth is flat, and I 100% believe it because of what the Bible says.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Brian's Logic, Refracted Curvature, 10th Man, Neil, did I miss anybody? Righteous Force, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Hello.
Keen, excellent stuff. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
You would need that for any antipodal assertions about the stars. I wanted to get that in from the pre-show, but yeah, if you can't measure Earth curve, you can't assert antipodal positions.
No, there's no Earth curve. It's a fundamental premise of being on a sphere that we have an Earth curve edge horizon blocking boats and buildings. And we've debunked it. The horizon is not Earth curve. We only have one horizon. And the horizon, in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, is geometric. It's claimed to block boats and buildings with its physical nature. And we've shown that it's beyond the geometric limitations of an Earth sphere radius 3959. Therefore, the horizon's not Earth curve.
Well, I think you'll find that you'll never experience it. And that is also the official claim.
We won't experience Earth curve. Touche. Yeah.
Hello?
No, that's not the official claim. That's a woven magic trick, but that's not the official claim. The official claim is you can measure it.
The official
You
claim
can
is
measure
Earth.
it through your
Yeah.
experience.
I see. The official. Hello, Arwin.
Hi.
Hello. The official claim is the horizon is Earth curve and will physically block things, and you can measure it geometrically, derive R from it. We've debunked all of that.
And that's why the official claim is that we will never experience it.
Unofficial.
Well, it has to be, doesn't it? Neil deGrasse Tyson says it. That's not
Listen,
official. I don't know what isn't.
listen, how to debate a flat earther says it all starts with the horizon.
And ends.
Well, they say that, but then they say don't debate them right after that, too. Don't they? Gain their trust.
Yeah, well, wordsmiths and magicians.
Moving on. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
I haven't come across any.
Yet another thing you'd have to have a radius to measure.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No, there's no evidence of that. There's evidence of a distance to its GP here on the ground, on Earth, but that's it.
Any evidence of what it is?
I'd like to know, though. Fascinating.
Me too.
We have evidence of what it's not.
Yeah, it's not a burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum. It's a violation of natural law.
Oh, the sun.
Yeah, any
Yeah,
evidence
I know there's...
distance to it, Arwin?
No, sorry, I just didn't actually hear the housekeeping question. I thought it was about gravity, but it was about the sun.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
No.
Right,
Only
any-
apparent distances.
No, and then carry on, I would.
I'm sorry, I said only apparent distances. That's it.
Fair enough. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Gravity is not definable, so how could you have the scientific evidence of it?
Well, does thinking of it make it scientific?
Does thinking of something as empirical make it empirical?
Right. What if you could just think of gravity as being scientifically proven?
If we think of,
That doesn't go to the scientific method, though.
if we think of these questions as rhetorical, will they be?
No, there won't be. There isn't any scientific evidence of gravity. There can't be, because it doesn't exist. At the moment, at present, according to mainstream pseudoscience, it's a purely mathematical belief. That's it.
Careful, you can't say it can't be. That's just, you know what I mean?
Well, it would have to exist for there to be, and it doesn't exist.
Right,
Righteous. How's it defined? How's it defined currently?
I'm not talking about mainstream rhetoric or what it is.
No, I'm not either. How's it defined currently?
How do you define it, Righteous?
I'm not. How do I put it? All I was looking at was the wording. Okay.
No, that's what I'm asking. How is it defined currently before you can say what you said?
I mean, how can you ask me? How can you say to me that I can't say that about something? I can't say something that I can't say that something that we can't get scientific. We can't get scientific evidence for something that doesn't exist. You're telling me I can't say that. How could I ever say anything else?
I'll give you the definition that as I would use it. You know, what would cause?
Is that officially what gravity is? Whatever that's your definition.
Hold on, Brian. Hold on. Go ahead, Righteous.
I would just say it's, you know, what's the cause of you know, more dense things being in one direction than the other directions. Now it could be a law, that's also a possibility, but it could also be a cause, right?
So what would you call that, since that's what you say this? What would you call that?
I'm not shy or afraid to say the word gravity.
Okay, so do you know that, hang on, Brian, please. So you know that word has already been used up, and you can't use that word for a different definition. So can you please describe gravity currently, and then you need to pick a different word for what you're using.
Well, I just stick to, how do I put it? I just stick to what most people are familiar with, right? Like, obviously, you won't find this in a dictionary or anything like that, right? It's just something people associate this phenomenon with, right?
So what you're saying is I could look at a brunette and call it a blonde.
Hold on. He said you can describe this phenomenon with it. Hold on. Yeah, exactly. What phenomenon would that be?
Things going down?
I said more dense things being in one direction than the other directions.
Yeah, but that's already defined clearly as relative density equilibrium, and the cause is.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, I mean, you can call it relative density equilibrium or relative density disequilibrium. Either term, it's all relative, depending on the density of the object or substance and the medium. So it's a relative relationship.
I think he's referring to what causes the direction.
Yeah, but the main point is low density things don't always go up, and high density things don't always go down. It all depends on the density relation with what surrounds it.
Hold on. The question from Discord was, what gives it the direction? Well, that's the point. The direction, the vector, is relative. So you can't ascribe it what we see as up and down, because that's relative to us. So it's dependent on the medium, i.e. the word relative in this description is appropriate because it is dependent. The vector might not be down.
Now, a piece of wood would float on. Sorry, I thought.
No, that's it. That's it's just as simple as that. Well, what's been described incorrectly as a force pulling things down, and equilibrium, when a brick's on the ground, it's not in equilibrium in the heliocentric model with gravity description. What it actually is experiencing 1g. Yeah? And then free fall is described as being akin, like, orbital motion with 0g. So you've got the scale being moved by 1 point when it's in equilibrium, not moving. Fall arrest, if you will. Well, that's not moving, but it's still got 1g. Why? Well, because there's always a down. There's an ascribed vector to everything always with the word gravity. So then we get into the questions of what gives it the direction. What direction? There is no absolute direction in this regard. So direction, what do you mean? That's relative to what the medium's doing, like the egg. Well, the direction, the vector that it's taking could be up. Yeah, but it also could be down. Depends on the density of the medium, i.e. it's relative. Relative density, you don't need the equilibrium or disequilibrium bit. Disequilibrium is just when the egg is settling. You pour the salt in, it moves, eventually it reaches its equilibrium. That's entropy. Well, that process of being in disequilibrium is pretty short-lived. Likewise, if you pick up a pen and drop it, the process of you putting it into disequilibrium, making it more dense than the medium it's in, air, and then returning it from whence it came, that's a very short process. However, in the gravity description, it's always got 1g. The planet has got 1g. So therefore, there's always a force. That's the problem. There isn't. It's relative to the medium.
Yeah, you can drop a piece of wood through air, but that same piece of wood will float on water.
Wait, you're saying relative to the medium, but how do I put it? I'm trying to understand how you guys are saying it's like relative density and relative to the medium. Well, yeah, relative to, is it more dense in one direction or less dense in another direction? Is that how you're saying it?
The directions.
Well,
hold on. The direction itself will be decided by the medium, and then the object placed within the medium, relative to the medium, will give it a vector. A vector. Not up, not down, not automatically going to be one direction or opposing it, just relative to the medium and relative to the item placed in it.
Right, but the medium differences, right? There's a medium difference, right? There's more dense in one direction and less dense in another direction of the medium, right?
Yep.
Incorrect. Gas has entropic effects, and it will disperse in all directions, no matter its density.
Correct.
I think he's getting at why is up, up, and why is down, down.
What's up to you isn't up to a different thing in a different medium.
Give an example.
Fish
Gas.
in water. People drown when they go deep sea cave diving, because once they're underwater, what is up to them isn't relative to the medium that they're in, because it's all relative to the direction they're pointing. There's no reference to give them up or down when they're in a cave, causing them to often drown. Well, you can't.
All right. Let's say we go to the bottom of the earth, right? Then it wouldn't be relative anymore, right? That would be like the ultimate down, right?
No. There's things that can bury themselves underneath that medium.
No, let's say we're at we're at the limit of this reality at the bottom. Let's say we're there.
Where's that?
Okay.
Show it me.
Yeah,
Let's have a
but now
look.
we're going
Hold on.
into
What's that?
fantasy.
Hold on. What's that look like?
Exactly. Where is that?
Where's that?
Exactly, Nathan.
Oh, I was just trying to simplify this.
Well, it's not simple. If I have your Wile E. Coyote at the top of a cliff that's precariously broken, and he stands on it, right? He falls through it because it collapses. Well, up until that point, he was on solid ground and in equilibrium. No, he wasn't. He was in fall arrest. He was actually more dense than the medium underneath the medium he was standing on. So he falls through the medium, as does the rock he was standing on. It reaches the ocean. Now, some of the moss breaks away from the rock and floats. He sinks all the way to the bottom of the ocean. Now, at that point, there are various different things that would start to bury themselves in the seafloor if they're dense enough. Well, what's below that? You tell me. Is there another thing? Is there another cliff like with the Wile E. Coyote in the air? Is there a cliff somewhere on that seabed that has got something beneath that could be less dense? I don't know. Maybe. It's a very interesting subject, but I don't know the answers. Seems like you get to a point and then you go, well, you're in equilibrium now. Well,
Okay.
Actually, no. There is definitely potential to have stuff below that. What it is might be various densities.
All right, let me word it like this then. Okay, let's say we're on the surface level of the Earth, right? Sea level, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter where. Somewhere on Earth. It could be on a mountain, doesn't matter where. Well, let's use a mountain example. We're on top of a mountain, and we see that the more dense things goes below us. Now, somebody that's at sea level, to him also, it seems like the most dense things go below him. So despite of being on top of a mountain, and another guy below at sea level, below that guy on top of a mountain, there's still a general direction of where down is for both of them.
Not for if they're holding a helium balloon, then that's an up. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It depends on what they're dropping.
No. I'm talking about density. The helium balloon goes up because it's less. The helium balloon goes up because it's less dense. Less dense things up, more dense things down.
Yeah. So when you're describing this, you're only tying it to a relative position from your vantage point. And Brian's saying, well, what if you were a human helium balloon? Well, suddenly everything changes. Well, that's because you are tying it to your medium that you are most familiar with, air. and your density that you're most familiar with. Coincidentally, I'll say it one more time, ascribed as having 1g when in fall arrest or equilibrium.
It's about structural support of matter. That's what it is. I mean, I never stop beating this drum. It's about the structural support of matter. If the surrounding medium can't support the object, person, substance, whatever, then that substance, object, person will go down. If it can support it, then it will support it. Or if it's a lot more dense, then it will displace it upwards. Unless you're buried in concrete or something, then it won't, because it just turns into solid. But other than that, you will be displaced upwards.
Righteous, I don't understand your mountain thing. I mean, you got a mountain, and you know that the rock that the mountain is made of is more dense than the air around it. So you've got a shape of a mountain, and the shape is a mountain. And so you're saying, why is that higher than the sea level at the seashore, where it's just broken pieces of sand, small grains of sand? I mean, if the sand could be put together somehow with some kind of I don't want to say glue or anything, but let's just say you make something with sand, but it can hold its structure, then it's going to act like a mountain as well, because it's going to be held together like the mountain is.
Well, I was comparing it to Nathan's fish analogy, right? Like if you're a fish, right? I'm like, no matter where you are on the earth, dense things it will not change the direction of more dense things going in one direction. That's what I was comparing it to.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And?
Yeah,
And
at that point,
that's the vector I'm talking about that Rams pointed out.
That's not a single vector.
No.
That's relative to the medium.
I still don't see what the problem
Yeah,
with
but
Brian was.
the medium is based on the density, right?
Yeah. So you've got a plant that's growing at the bottom of the seafloor. Leaf detaches. Which way does it go? Does it go down?
To the less dense area. Oh no. If it's less dense, it goes up. If it's more dense, it goes down.
All right. So it's very specifically dependent on the medium which way up and down are going to be described as. So from your vantage point, the leaf goes up. Well, why? It's at the bottom of... it's the medium that dictated that then. So it's relative.
Right, but it's relative to the density of the medium.
Oh,
right?
So to be as concise as possible, you could almost just say relative density then.
Okay.
Correct.
Hold on.
Hold on, I've led him beautifully. Let me have my moment.
Right, but...
Right, you said gravity. You said wrong. I like to go with what people are familiar with.
Right, but I'm trying to describe...
So not right, though. You're saying right like Virus did yesterday.
Him go, Nathan.
No, I agree with you.
I'm not letting him go. He's saying right like Virus said okay yesterday.
Well, I just want to add one more thing. I agree with that part. I'm not disagreeing with that part. But I'm saying, why is it that the medium is more dense towards one vector and less dense the opposite of that vector?
Good question. So that is where you get into the intricacies of how the cause of this effect begins. Right.
Can I take this part?
And Brian
I would prefer Brian did. It was his point. It was Brian that started this off. You're talking about a second order effect of entropy. You want to know what's the beginning of that? Cut a long story short, God.
I was just going to say that. He's trying to find out the cause of entropy.
How did it all begin? What is entropy? The process from beginning to end. The start of it into decay, if you want to look at it in its most crude terminology. What's the start of that? Well, that's the beginning of it all. Well, what you trace that back right to the beginning, what do you get to? Well, you get to the ontological primitives. That's where it leads you. So, you have to assess it for, will I ever...
Sorry.
Will I ever ascertain the cause of an entropic effect? Answer, in my opinion, no. You're not going to get to the beginning because the beginning of all of these processes is the start of everything. That you're trying to ascertain the start of it. If you're trying to look at the start of entropy, what's the beginning of that process? Well, that's the start of everything if you wind the clock back long enough. Well, what do you get when you come to the ontological primitives? Did nature create it all? Or was there an intelligent agency? That's the only question. There aren't any other questions. There aren't any other answers. Those are it. That's it. Did nature create everything out of nothing? That's the Big Bang story. Divide by zero, get everything in existence. A Big Bang. Or do you require intelligence? Well, you look at experimental validity to the fact that you need a knower to have information in the first place, and without information you've essentially got nothing at all. Then what do you need for information again? Oh, a knower? Well, that's it. So the beginning of it all starts with a knower. What's another way of putting a knower? Somebody who knows something. At the start of it all, before there wasn't anything. So who's that knower going to be? I don't care what you call that either. You call it God, call it a knower, don't care. There's a knower at the beginning of the process for information to exist.
Simple. It says in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Started everything.
Then they'll claim that the Noah created the Big Bang.
Maybe, but that doesn't change the ontological primitives. If you want to shoehorn in a heliocentric version of God creating the Big Bang, then that doesn't change the ontological primitives. You're just speculating about what God did in that instance.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Righteous is. I could be wrong. Righteous, you can correct me. I think what Righteous was asking was how come it's more dense. Let's just say the air is more dense close to the surface of Earth, and water is more dense down at the bottom. Is that what you're asking? How come the medium is more dense down the way and less dense up the way?
In a sense.
Yeah.
Well, the simple answer to that would be density, but the actual, if you want to talk about, let's say, gas or liquids, the answer is temperature. Temperature, the colder something is, the colder something is, the more dense it becomes. So like you're not going to have as much air up high because the temperatures, they also have gas cycles, but the temperatures don't allow it. It's too cold.
So we've isolated a cause that can affect that, right?
No, it's part of the triangle. It's not a cause. It's integral. It's not a cause, though. You can't say temperature causes it. It's just part of the description.
You need gas for temperature.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It is a part. That's right. But
yes,
as a part, it's still a cause, right?
Well, no. In the same way, you can't say PV equals nRT is causal. You can't say that because you've got an equation that describes it. You can take out aspects of it and describe them as causal. And in the case of heat, am I being too unkind, Brian? Can you call heat a cause without the heat?
Well, you need gas, you need matter to heat or to cold. If you know what I mean, you need matter to create that type of heat.
Isn't it a given? Based on the fact that we can't reach absolute zero, isn't it a given that it's always going to have a certain degree of energy, and therefore the heat factor is just our way of quantifying that aspect of something that has it always without exception. So therefore, our quantification in terms of heat is just an arbitrary description we've applied to something that's occurring always. So again, it's back to me saying, well, no, it's just part of the description in the law. It's not like volume, PV equals nRT, where you can say, well, no, without the container, you can have no pressure. Therefore, you can ascribe a causal link to that. But you can't do that with heat. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I'd love to be corrected.
You need to have something to heat. You need to
Wait a second.
With conductive and convective heat, you need matter.
Do you know what I mean? We already have an experiment with heat. Remember boiling point of water at sea level? The cause being the temperature?
Yeah, but
that's controlled variable being the pressure.
That's no. Hold on. The effect in that instance is boiling. That's the effect that you're observing, and heat being the cause in that instance isn't the same as saying when we have anything occurring ever, we've got stuff that has energy as part of it. Now that will never be at absolute zero, so it won't ever be the case that hasn't got a certain amount of energy. So to say because it's always got a certain amount of energy, we're going to say that the inherent amount of energy that it's got and the variant thereof that we can measure is somehow causal. I don't like this. It just doesn't sit well. Adam's going to join. Hopefully he'll back me. Hold on. Adam's here and he's probably been listening. Hopefully he'll back me or tell me I'm an idiot. We'll see.
Uh-oh. I haven't been listening.
Okay, I can summarise it in about 10 words. If you're describing how you achieve different densities of mediums, various entropic effects. Can you say that heat is a cause of that?
A cause of the medium?
In a way, yeah.
Category error. Category error.
I think so
this is
too,
all a
yeah.
category error.
Temperature is the more correct answer.
Brian, can you rephrase the question for Adam, just so we get clarity before he answers?
Yeah. Righteous was asking, basically, how come in a medium, the more dense is always towards the bottom and less dense is always towards the top? And I said, if it depends on it depends on the medium, gas or liquid or whatever, but it's temperature related. That's what I said.
No, so yeah, category error. If we take any medium, whether it's solid, liquid, or gas, and we add energy in the form of heat, temperature, then that is transferred to the molecules. It makes them more excitable. That's what causes phase changes. That's what makes things less dense because they got more energy. So, but that isn't the thing that's defining its density. It's just a factor that can affect density of the individual object in terms of how much energy each atom's got.
But when you say can affect, that means cause.
No.
Why
it's
not?
It's not causing it to be a liquid.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
It's causing it to be less dense.
No, yeah, when you're describing an effect, so if you describe a phase change as an effect, and then you say, well, heat, then yeah, you described an effect. Whereas if you're describing an inherent property, and I see heat, the amount of energy any particular molecule's got at any given time, which can be varied by you, isn't going to describe its overall attributions as a gas, solid, or liquid, or plasma for that matter. So therefore, how can you call it a cause?
No, you're Adam is right.
Isn't it just a control?
It's not changing why the reason why something. Not. All right, sorry, my sister told me to keep my voice down. It's not the reason why it's causing why more dense things to go down and more less dense things to go up. It's just affecting the actual density. So that wouldn't be a cause of why more dense things go down, and vice versa.
Right,
so guys. I'm glad Adam pointed that out.
Yeah, I think
guys,
that's
give me a couple,
good summary.
Give us a couple of minutes.
Go ahead.
Let me have a couple of minutes here with Righteous.
Okay, before you do, hold on, just before you do. So, number one, everyone else try and keep interruptions to a minimum. Everyone who's watching live, 100 people watching live. The only reason this show's got anyone watching live is because people share. So please share the show. Go ahead, Anthony. Everyone else, button it. Righteous, right, you're going to be grilled. Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm not going to grill him.
I thought we're just having a chit chat.
Yeah, I'm not going to grill him. I just want you to just follow me.
Oh, okay. That was a bit too much of an introduction to this then. Go ahead, Anthony. My bad.
Okay, so Righteous, you've seen the density tower with the cherry tomato in it many times before, correct?
Correct.
All right, I want you to make the volume of the tower into the size of a swimming pool in your mind, but I want you to preserve the height of the layers. So your swimming pool is filled with the 9 layers of fluid, and they've all preserved the height within that swimming pool. So it's no longer a tower. It's now a density swimming pool, and there's lots of volume for us to play with. Now I want you to imagine that we've got 10,000 cherry tomatoes that are all identical. They've all got the exact same volume and the exact same density. And we're now going to start pouring them in one by one into the swimming pool that's got all these layers, these 9 layers. Each cherry tomato is going to sit in the layer of dish soap because they're all identical. Why is it when we keep pouring them in one after one after one, why is it that they fill the swimming pool laterally and they don't fill the swimming pool up or down, and there's no up or down direction in this example?
You want me to say relative density?
No, I want you to explain why there's not up or down.
I know, but I'll tell you later.
Yeah, just maybe to follow the question.
There's more volume for it to go like left or right.
Correct. So the medium has got more volume to it, and we're putting more volume into that medium, and it's finding its level initially, but then laterally filling out, isn't it? So if we were to just inject it straight into that layer, so that it didn't fall through any of the mediums, and it was just set at that layer of dish soap, it would laterally go sideways. Now you could argue, well, that could be the up and down, and that's spreading out sideways because of whatever. And I could say, well, it's simply because we're putting more cherry tomatoes in that medium, and that's where it's going sideways because it can't go any higher because the water's less dense than it, and it can't go lower because the milk's more dense than it. So it's being squashed into that position relative to the mediums around it. But the key point is we're going laterally here. We're not going up and down. So if there's no vertical movement, and we've only got an example of lateral movement by virtue of volume, and we're filling up that volume with mass or matter, whatever word you want to use, we no longer have the up and down. Does that change your perspective for where the up and down comes from?
Not really, no.
But we haven't got an up and down in this example.
Right, but we just introduced another variable, the volume, right?
Yeah.
So it's still.
But it's the volume of the medium in question that makes it. Because, like, if we were to make the milk more voluminous, it still wouldn't affect the tomato because the tomato wouldn't touch the milk. If we did more water, it wouldn't affect the tomato because it's less dense than the tomato. But if we gave the dish soap more volume and then started filling the tomatoes up in that volume, then your tomatoes are going to fill that volume, but it's going to fill laterally. So there's no up and down there, and it's caused by the medium. So now we've got the example of lateral accelerations, but not up and down. We've got lateral, haven't we? So there is no up and down, and that's a demonstration that shows it, and it's caused by the volume of the medium in question.
But I'm not talking. How do I put it? But there's still a density layering effect, right?
Caused by, I'm going to use the word loosely, caused by mass or mole or energy, as Einstein would say, or whatever word you want to use to describe that quantification of matter. Now, this is like the ping pong ball compared to the golf ball. Both got similar volumes, but very different substance to them, and we can call that a variety of words, all of which are kind of abstract but descriptive. That it's the matter in question, the amount of matter in that volume that's governing the behavior of the things that are in it. So what your question is, well, why is it going up and down? It's not really going up and down. It's really reacting with its medium. And we're manipulating that medium to cause the accelerations that are in it. And the answer to your question is mass or matter or energy or whatever word you want to use to describe it. But that is the reason why we've got the direction.
I disagree with that.
Can I please say something?
You can, but I just want to do a quick super chat shout out so then you can disagree and then I will if it's different. Godzilla37, thanks for the super chat. It says, denser things go down, ? Is that why so many of these anti-flat earthers are so short? ? Thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Yeah, the way I would view that would be very simplistic. You can fill up the swimming pool with milk, and you can put a layer of cherry tomatoes on top of it. Why? Because the milk can structurally support the tomatoes. If you put vegetable oil in and put tomatoes in, they'll sink to the bottom because it can't support the tomatoes. You know, so if you can put more milk in, the tomatoes will rise. It's a structural issue.
We can change the nouns that we use for these layers. So instead of saying lamp oil and rubbing alcohol and vegetable oil, we could just say up, and then we can say more up and more up, or down and more down, or more down. So the term that we use to describe these things could be descriptive, and they could be nouns. They could be lamp oil or rubbing alcohol. It doesn't change the fact that there's a number attached to it, and that number is linear in its function. 7 is bigger than 6, but it's not as big as 8. Why is it that way? It's just the way it is. But these numbers or names, they're all relative to each other. So go on, Nathan, why do you disagree?
Well, because you're giving a description and giving all the disclaimers about how abstract it is, and then at the very end saying that that's the reason. Well, again, when you get to reason, you're ascribing causal attributes to your descriptions, which isn't reasonable.
I'm only describing it as abstract because these words that we use to describe are so convolutedly, they're not easy to describe within science, because mass doesn't mean the same as mole. Mole doesn't mean the same as energy. Energy doesn't mean the same as matter, but all four of them can be used interchangeably to describe the reason for why the density tower.
Well, that's a big problem. So when you're doing anything in science, you have to be hyper-specific about what you're talking about. And if you're describing a cause, it's got to have certain things ascribable to it. Number one, it's your independent variable when you're experimenting. Number two, it is what you think actually causes it. And number three, it's got to be real. You've got to be able to not just define it, actually be able to physically show it in reality so that you can vary and manipulate it.
That's why the phrase relative density is used, because that is the thing that we're manipulating. So what they call mass or energy or matter, we just call relative density because this is the descriptive of what we're observing. It is the density of the medium that's causing it. Whether we call that mass or energy, who cares? But essentially, if we manipulate the density of the medium or the object, then acceleration occurs. Well, that is the explanation, and that is the right wording. That's why the direction is really more and less dense, and it's not up and down.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you say more or less dense, there has to be a more or less dense than what?
Than the medium or the object in question.
Exactly. It's specific to
That's
each.
why it's always relative.
Exactly.
Hello, Chocolate.
I don't know about that density tower. Bob, no
Morning,
doubt.
guys.
Threw that to the side.
You say that again, Neil. You don't know about the density tower?
Or don't.
Bob Nodell tossed that to the side like it didn't even matter.
Can I go back to the temperature issue after John?
You can. Yes. Go ahead, Brian.
John was going to say something about the current thing, so I'll go back to the temperature issue after that.
I think this whole conversation is a bit convoluted because we're trying to mix how, why questions with what is questions, and then asserting things that we don't really know. Now, what we can say is that we're witnessing a proportionality. There is already a law in effect that describes that proportionality. What are we doing?
Well, what if science? What if mainstream science has deliberately used any name possible other than the word density to describe the mass or the matter or the volume or the mole or the energy or whatever these words are? If there's a buzzword that they can't use because they don't want to tell us that it's density, right? They'll use anything to describe it but density, right? And is it possible that they are using any other word possible with very loose definitions so that they don't really help us in any way and you end up being more confused than you... But rather than admit that it's density related.
No,
if they just use density,
there
wouldn't be any confusion.
No, what they do is they originally ascribed a downward vector, always in effect, called gravity. Then they replaced that because you couldn't actually demonstrate it in reality. It was debunked by gas with a bending geodesic in space-time, a medium that didn't exist and was invented in mathematics to get around this need for a force with a downward vector, when in reality, when you get down to the nitty-gritty of what you're actually investigating, you're trying to figure out what the cause of entropy is.
Correct.
Well, what I would say to John's statement there is, no, a greater density, a greater concentration of matter, a concentration of matter of greater density will support a concentration of matter of lesser density. I mean, it couldn't be more simple. I don't see why there is even a problem with this. It's like, you know, sand will be supported by rock, but it won't be supported by air. You know,
that's not strictly true. Hold on, Brian. That's not true. That's actually not true. Let me just correct Brian. You ever opened a bag of muesli, Brian?
Yes.
What's at the top
of sand, Nathan?
Well, I know it's not sand, but it's similar in terms of you've got various different densities of stuff within that bag. What happens? Well, you end up with all the nuts and the bigger stuff at the top.
Well, I don't see that happening. I don't remember having loads of stuff. Like, that comes down to the fact that all the smaller stuff will fall through the gaps between the bigger stuff.
Yeah, correct.
And ends up compacting. That's what
correct.
happens.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Brian, I'm agreeing with your structural support. I'm starting to really agree with Brian here.
Hold on a minute. Before we go forward, when you point out more dense to less dense, you are still asserting a proportionality. We already have a natural law in place that is describing a proportionality. It's called entropy.
Correct.
Yeah, but entropy is a description.
Yes,
all
that's
entropy
correct.
is.
Also,
So entropy,
what more do you think you're going to get? This is
well,
kind of where me and Rob got to last night. I think it's a foolhardy mission to think at the moment that you're going to get any more than a description of what always happens.
you're being asked, what else do you want?
Sorry.
I'm about just reiterating what you're being asked. So you're being asked, what else would you like to achieve, Brian?
Yeah, but it's not. But see, why is someone being labelled with trying to achieve more, or trying to achieve something that they haven't claimed that they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, you
My
are.
point.
Hold on.
My
Yes, you are.
point
Yeah, you are. Structural support. Yes, that's your claim. That's your claim.
Well, you're not leaving me. Yeah, but leave me finish. Leave me finish what I'm saying. Yeah, structural support is what I'm claiming. But what the point that's been missed here is what I'm trying to do is describe what we see in a more honest fashion. That a layman's term that everyone can understand, because it is actually very simple.
It's just not right.
What caused all this to happen is a different thing.
Let's pull apart this structural support claim. So, what's structure, Brian?
Structure is like the structure is to do with. If I had to go into the dictionary definition of it, the structure would involve kind of tightly compacting of matter. Like they use structure to build things. Like things have to have enough structure. If they're going to build a building, they have to put in steel into the building and concrete and make sure it has enough structural support for whatever is going to be in there.
Do you want a definition?
Go ahead.
But the noun, the arrangement of and relations between the parts or elements of something complex.
So,
that's its structure.
So it's the connections between things ready to describe structure then, Brian?
What do you mean?
Well, it's how things fit together as part of a whole, and that whole is the structure.
Yeah.
Right. So how things are connected together.
Yeah, but
the better connected together they are, the more structural support they'll give, right?
Well, the more compacted, for any concentration of matter, the more compacted it is, the more structural support it can give to all other concentrations of matter that are less dense.
Right. So conceptually, with a lot of disclaimers, I can appreciate your analogy when you say structural support. Because you're going to say at 14.7 psi, that's a lot of gas in a very relatively small area. Therefore, there's a lot of them, within a couple of millimeters, there's gas banging up against each other all the time. Therefore, because there's a lot of them all banging up against each other all the time, that as a whole provides, and then this is the problem, structural support. Now, as an analogy, I get it. The problem is that that word means connected together, and gas has no bonds.
Well, if you can find a better term that people can take on board, then off you go. But every other term that I use ends up being kind of convoluted. I could say density support. I could say density resistance.
What's wrong with pressure?
Because pressure, I don't like pressure. Because pressure involves a pushing, involves a pressing.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, concrete's not pressing up.
Yeah.
I'm
Hold on.
concrete.
Why don't you like that? When that's exactly what you're in need of. When you're describing displacement, for instance, a helium balloon being displaced. So you need something to be pushing on it then.
Yeah, but when is the concrete on the floor underneath me pushing up on me, or am I pushing down on it?
That's solid.
Stopping you from moving.
But we're into a different convention when you describe it with solids, because you can easily describe it as having structural support rather than having a displacement effect. Well, when you move over to a gas and describe something being displaced, you're then into not needing the lattice work structure of the concrete to describe how it's forcing it up, in the case of a helium balloon. You need it to have something literally pushing on it. And pressure, for me, is absolutely perfect for that. But you prefer structural support. I don't like the word.
Yeah, you want me to say pressure support? Well, I'll never say that.
No, just
because
pressure.
Just
that's
pressure.
vague.
Pressure's a force, right?
No, I'll never say that. Never ever.
I don't
I'll say structural
even
support.
understand why
No.
we have to
That's
make
what
a
I say.
distinction between all these things, because I understand.
Just
I don't
to
know. We've
avoid
done this
confusion.
before,
To avoid
right?
confusion.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand what Brian means when he says structural support. He's not
Yeah.
asserting that it's a structure. That's why he's using it as a description and saying structural, because of the way it's the way what if we're talking about a gas, the way the gas has I don't know with the like if we take an example, right? The let's take the sulfur hexafluoride in the little tank, right? And you put the little boat on top of it. Why is it sitting on there?
Because there's pressure underneath it pushing up.
Right. So it's the same thing as saying it's structurally supportive enough to hold it up there, right? I don't
It
see
is.
why it's a problem.
No, there isn't. No, Chocolate, I agree. And I gave that disclaimer when I said to him, no, I even gave the analogy on his behalf to make it make sense, because it's not like I don't understand why he's describing it that way. I totally get it. You know, I'm describing how compacted all the gas particles are together. Therefore, as a combination of lots of, if you could see them, there's lots of them in the way of stuff to displace other things up, or in the case of the sulfur hexafluoride, to stuff it on top with a tinfoil boat. You can show that because there's a lot of it in a small area. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Structurally, it's supported, but the word just is ambiguous. That's the problem.
Well, I can give you an
Ryan,
example of
keep-
what
I
would
get
be
it.
a problem.
You don't
Brian,
like
you keep
structure. He
going
doesn't
with
like
that,
pressure.
Brian.
Yeah.
You keep
The
going
difference
with
is,
that.
I'm with
no,
Nate.
just-
I'm with
just
Nate. I'll
force.
never
Hold on,
change
just
that.
Brian. Just Brian, then Sleeping Warrior. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, you don't, I'm using the word structural support because people can, it's an intuitive thing. People can take that on board and it makes sense to the layman immediately. I don't care about the specifics of the definition of the word structure. I care about the message getting across and an explanation to people, a description that can explain something to people in a simplistic way, as opposed to what they get, which is Einstein. I'm detailing
Oh, God, hold on.
I'm detailing the effect. I'm describing the effect in a way people can understand in a very simplistic way. And it makes total sense to people. I would say 80% of the people have said it there. Even ballers have actually said to me, yeah, well, that makes a bit of sense.
Let's Sleeping Warrior respond to you, but
Yeah, I think I'll Sleeping Warrior.
QE's not here to give a quote, but I'll butcher it slightly, which is, words have meanings. Choose your words carefully. It's important. You're saying it's just, well, I'm using it as a way of describing it, but I'm sure you appreciate, given that this is a debate platform, that the semantics of that word and how it's defined are critical. Here, outside of here, when you're talking to Joe Norman, you're just trying to get a concept across. That's why I pegged it as an analogy rather than a description.
And you know I love you, Brian, but when you did say that, I did wince a little bit. Like, we do have to be a little bit more specific with the definitions of the word. You can't just use the word and then when somebody says define it, it's
Because
like,
we
I don't
pushed
care
him
what it
into
means.
it.
Look, guys,
Right.
let me have
But again, he knows how I feel about this whole thing.
Hold on,
So
let's
it's
just
like I get it.
Just give way to. Hold on a second.
That, Brian.
Hold on.
I won't, Neil.
Just give way to
Don't worry
Sleeping
about it.
Warrior a second, everyone. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior.
So the converse explanation would be that when the word structure is used, that wouldn't imply a force. It would imply that there's a resistance to an acceleration because it's like a barrier. Whereas, and it's not within Newton's first law of motion, which is what they always apply. So if we use the word force, a resistance, like because it is causing the acceleration or the deceleration in this case, that when we use the word force or pressure, then that's consistent with Newton's first law of motion, and that causes acceleration. So we can use the word pressure as a force to accelerate mass and to decelerate mass in line with Newton's first law of motion. And I do totally accept that it's a bit confusing initially, and you can use structural support to make the point. But once you've got the point, the force that's created is from pressure. And once you've got the pressure and the force, you're then within Newton's first law of motion, and then you can use that argument against them because to them, density is just a scalar. it's not a force, is it? But if it causes acceleration or deceleration, then it is a force, and the pressure is the force in question, and we can demonstrate that, and that's what the egg does.
Yeah, but I don't care about Newton's laws of motion.
I don't either.
No
Hold on,
offense.
let's just
Yeah,
before you go,
they
Brian.
are
Hold on,
though.
hold on, hold on,
Newton's laws
hold
of
on, hold
motion
on.
were not
Everyone,
right.
hello, hello. Go ahead, John. You were posting things. I'd rather you just said them.
Well, it's context, really, because it depends on who you're talking to and what you're talking to them about. For Brian to use structural support between us is acceptable because we understand what he's talking about. The problem comes is if a baller comes along and that's made as a claim, all they have to do is post that gas has no structural support, and the claim becomes fallacious.
Correct.
Yeah, I debunk that immediately with the fact, absolute fact, that objects weigh more in a vacuum. So straight away, right, I'm taking away their claim. I've said this to loads of ballers, and they've actually said, well, that makes sense. They said to me, right? They didn't leave go of gravity, but they were stumped and stopped in their tracks. They didn't come back and attack me on the definition of structural, because it's like this, right? Right. If I'm falling through the air, I'll stop when I hit something. When will I stop falling?
When you hit something that structurally can support you.
No. That's not true. You'll stop falling when
You're
your
not gonna stop in
density.
the air.
Hold
Hang
on,
on.
Neil.
When your density is equal to the medium that you're in, and we see that demonstrated with Felix Baumgartner's stratospheric Red Bull jump.
But that's not true.
No, hang on. Initially, his fall was at 800 miles an hour, but by the time he got into Earth's atmo, he pulled his parachute cord at just 120 miles an hour, and that's because the density of the medium he's falling through is getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and that's decelerating him. So if that continued, because the ground wasn't in the way, and the gas got more and more dense and more dense, eventually he'd become the egg, and if it got more and more dense, he'd then start to fall back up again.
Yeah, so there was more structural support for him the closer he got.
Correct.
Or density.
Hold on. That structural support you're describing there, Brian. When it's described to you by Anthony, what's happening is the actual convention that's used to describe that would be the increase of pressure going down as he falls towards the ground. So you're saying it would reach a point where the pressure, the air pressure in Anthony's example, was so high it could actually provide support. Now, I'm not sure if that's technically correct, but it's just an example.
No way.
No, I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it's an example
Equilibrium.
where you reach equilibrium at a certain pressure, a certain air pressure.
We must
I've got to disagree with that, guys. Even in your analogy there, no. The only structure in gases, like oxygen...
No, listen, he'd end up becoming
Hold on, just let Adam go. Go ahead, Adam.
The only structure in gases are the covalent bonds between, so like in oxygen, the two covalent bonds it shares. There is no structure. So in your example there, where you increase the pressure, so there's that many molecules that you're colliding with you, what you end up doing there is exactly that, increasing the collision rate to such an extent that it impedes you. But no structure offered from...
Yeah, but hang on.
Well, let me finish the sentence.
Let him finish.
No structures is provided from the gas. The greater the concentration, the pressure of the gas, the more collisions you're having.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
Oh, come on. He's nearly there, Alex. He's nearly there. 2 more seconds.
That will slow you down, yeah, but it's not providing a structure in any sense of the word. In terms of when we talk about relationships with liquids and solids, the word structure is wholly applicable, I think, there. When we talk about it with a gas, we are just talking about an increase in the number of collisions.
Yeah, but no, not correct. It's oversimplified. As the pressure increases, there is a phase change from gas into liquid.
It's not going to stop somebody.
Hang on.
Yeah, well, then that's different.
Hang on. Yeah, so as pressure increases, we start to get liquefaction, don't we? And as it changes phase...
No.
Hang on,
He's not taking it to a phase change. He's not. He's just saying the amount of collisions impacting with a person as you go up in gas pressure, that means an up in amount of collisions. That's all gas pressure is, the number of collisions on the walls of the container. Well, in this case, you've got a gas and you've got it having a number of collisions with the person falling through it. As the pressure increases, then the amount of collisions on the person increases. Now, if that pressure continues up and up and up and up and up and up and up, higher and higher pressure, there are more and more and more collisions on the person. Now, what Adam is saying is that's not ever structural support. It just reaches a point where there's enough collisions to counteract the solid in this example. Now, if you then take that to a phase change, you're talking about something very different at that point. Hypothetically, I don't think this is impossible. I don't think there's any amount of air pressure that could suspend you. That said, thinking about it, there's great big wind tunnels, right, that just replicate people in free fall. So I don't see why not. Just get to a point where there's enough gas pressure pressing on you to impede your fall.
Okay, so because I got interrupted, I didn't get to finish my point. My point was that as the pressure increases, gas becomes liquid. And ultimately, if he was to fall into the water, we can all accept that he would have stopped accelerating, wouldn't he? He would have basically floated. If he'd have survived the impact, he'd have floated, wouldn't he? Or sunk, whichever, depending on how buoyant he was in that position or relative density he was in that position. But the point is that demonstrates that as he's falling through the gas, if the gas was to continue getting more and more dense, to directly answer Brian's question, he would eventually stop accelerating.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that is matter is matter. It has 4 different states that we are aware of, right? You have plasma, gas, liquid, solid, right? And a lot of the matter, right, it basically with enough messing around with temperature and different things like that, you can basically switch even the least dense like helium and stuff like that into a solid. Takes a lot of messing around and effort, but you can do it. But the point is that matter is still matter. It might have different states, but it's still matter. You need matter to make up structure. I mean, the term structural is just very much it's an intuitive type thing with people. When you say structural, they think of something that has structure that is supporting. So structural support is like you're getting the point across to people very simply.
The only real problem, Brian, I don't mean to cut you, man. The only problem is that you say structure, people just imagine or just think about a structure, right? Even if you're saying you're using it as a description and saying structural, people think structure. Well, structure means a solid.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smash the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
It's more intuitive, but once you get past that initial intuitiveness that you need when you make your point, if you don't transition from saying structural support and saying that the force is pressure, that is the force that stops the thing from moving, or it's like that, like on screen, the cherry tomato is not accelerating, right? Is it because it's being structurally supported by the stuff around it, or is it because it's being squashed from below and squashed from the top, and it's sandwiched between the 2 layers because it can't move anymore? So I say pressure is the correct word because it's being pressed up from below and down from above, and it can't move. It's sandwiched. But when you use structural support, it indicates that there's some kind of structure, and there's not. but there is the force that's keeping the cherry tomato in its position, right?
Well,
I think the structure comes from
He's
the
got a point
molecules,
there.
though. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that, right, if we're trying to explain this to the general public and give them a totally intuitive, very, very easy to understand description, then I can't find anything better, because outside of the only place I've gotten pullback on this has actually been on this show with G. That's the only place I've gotten that. Everywhere else, even with Paul, I was going to say it.
Are you appealing to consensus there, Brian?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I am on purpose. Yeah, and because that's more where I'm targeting. I'm targeting consensus. That's the point of this.
Hold on. So let me get it straight. So if everybody else agrees with you, really, we should all agree with you.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the majority of times I use that term, it's accepted, it's understood. That's what's important. What do we have at present in the world? We have a load of convoluted nonsense that the general public don't know what to make head nor tails of. What the hell good is that to anyone?
Yeah, but the problem is, though, by extension, by using that new term, structural support, you add to it, because the reality is that it is pressure that's causing that cherry tomato to maintain its position. Now, you can describe it as structural support, but if you fail to move off that and fail to move to pressure being the force, then you're actually contributing to the confusion there, right, in my opinion.
Not really, because
No. Wait. Just with the cherry tomato, we're dealing with a liquid. There will be structural support afforded by the liquid to the cherry tomato. I would agree in the case of liquids, not as strong as structural support as in the case of solids, but there are weak bonds between them. So I would agree in the liquid you could use that phrase, but certainly not with gases.
So
what about
why wouldn't you be able to?
Just 1 second. Guys. Just 1 second. Go ahead, Silent
Explain
Zero.
the tinfoil bolt.
Hold on, just 1 second, Anthony.
Explain the tinfoil
Hold on,
bolt.
just 1 second. Go ahead, Silent Zero.
Yeah, I just want to say with gases, you guys got to remember that the faster they go, like the faster gases go, they feel more solid. They become more solid. That's how airplanes are able to fall. That's how, like, that guy was slowing down through the air, because with speed, any gas is gonna give you the impression that it's more solid. So,
but that's density. It was density more solid zero.
That's wrong.
Explain the bolt. Adam, explain the bolts on screen.
As I heard Adam say wrong also. Go ahead, Adam.
Just no to that. No, that's the particles are doing exactly what they were doing at a different speed that you were falling at. The fact that you're falling faster means you encounter more.
There's already a word that describes this.
Exactly.
It's called interference. Interference between the molecules.
Pressure.
I have to use an example here, right? Now, I'm going to use bouncy balls, right? Because it's the only way to give you a mental description of it, right? A load of bouncy balls, they go down. I get that, right? A load of bouncy balls, although they're solids, they're still separate from each other, right? Now, if you have them not go always taking the vector down the way, but taking the vectors in all directions, when you get enough of a concentration of them, they do offer, even though they're moving in all directions, they will make them much smaller, right? Make them move in all directions, right? At different high rates, right? You get enough of them in concentration, they do offer structural support. Otherwise, helium balloons would not go up.
No.
Can I just pick up Adam on his previous comment? He said that you can describe structural support with liquids and solids, but not gases because they're not connected. Can you explain what we're looking at on screen, Adam, if you can't use gases to describe structural support?
We're not looking at anything.
What's
Oh, shit.
Nothing.
Right, sorry, 10 seconds, 5 seconds. Felt like rumpus then.
Would interference be the same thing as structure then? Because that looks like interference to me.
Whoa.
Thank you, because I wanted to ask Adam the same thing.
You said we couldn't use it to describe gases, but what is the description for the gas behavior with respect to the tinfoil if we can't call it support?
Yeah, that's enough. Get it off now.
It's like a hovercraft. How does
So
a
you're
hovercraft
asking
travel on a pocket of air?
what's gone off there?
No,
what
I'm
I
asking.
saw there was a number of you've loaded the container with a much denser gas. The over entropy will just equilibrate. But
Yeah,
the
but
point
the-
you
Everyone stop. Everyone stop. Right, each of you are going to get to the end of your point. For anyone listening that didn't just see what happened, a tank has been wheeled into a lab full of sulfur hexafluoride. That has then been pumped into a fish tank with a little bit of cardboard over the top of it. They've then removed the cardboard so that you've got a high concentration of sulfur hexafluoride in this fish tank. They then float a piece of tin foil that's in the shape of like a tray on the top of it. They then get a cup and pour the sulfur hexafluoride into the tray, which is currently being suspended by the gas beneath it. Adam, please feel free to continue to the end. Adam, hopefully you won't get interrupted.
So I've got to think of this as what's actually occurring. We've got gas molecules in there, and we put something on top of that whole system we've just created, and we see that it descends slowly. So if we think about what's happening there.
No, that's not the observation that we see. What we see is there appears to be a structural support supporting the chamber.
Oh, mate, that's just nonsense what you just said. There appears to be a structural support that we don't see. What there
May I give an example that in real life that it may be
no, it's
a
just
perfect
so story.
No, we appear to see something being supported by a gas. Now, you said earlier on, which I couldn't get in, but you said you could use structural support to describe with solids and liquids, but you couldn't with gases because they're not connected.
Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate members only live stream. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and I'm going to hand over almost immediately to Discord and G+, as they're in the thick of it, describing and detailing the causal effects of structural support. Enjoy the show.
What we have
you gotta take yourself off mute, Nathan.
Why is Nathan mute? Oh, there he is. There he is. All right, so, Adam, real quick, so I'm on the same wavelength with Sleeping Warrior right now, because if you say that you can use structural support, quote in quotes, to describe what's happening with the liquid, and then we're looking at this and we can see that this tinfoil is being supported by the gas collisions that are happening underneath it, why couldn't you use the same word to describe that? Because you said let's put a solid underneath. If we took the gas out and put a solid underneath, it'd be the same effect, right? It would just be sitting there.
Objection. The word in contention is structure, not support.
Yeah, it's not.
May I give an example? May I give an example maybe to help you guys?
Inside that actually makes it float, right? If it was on a solid, it's not gonna fall down to the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, but
objection.
Listen, what I'm saying is that the tinfoil is sitting on top of the gas, right? We can all see that, right? So is it being supported by the gas? Yes.
Objection. Yes. Objection. That's the wrong word. We're looking at structural, not support. We're looking at structural.
Okay, but that's what I'm trying to get to, though, because if Adam is saying he could use the word structural to describe if you put a liquid in there, right? Let's say you took it out and put water in there. So you're okay with using structural to describe it with water or some type of liquid because of the bonds. I get that. But if you have the same effect with the gas...
Yeah. Just right? Me and you then, Chop. Just me and
you
chatting on this. Okay. So
may I give you guys an example?
Hold on. Can you hear them saying,
Fucking
let's
hell.
just try and ignore everyone else's interjection? Just for a second, Silent Zero. Just let them thrash it out. We will get to you. I can hear you. But so can everyone else, which means no one else can hear the discussion.
Thank you.
I want some input after Adam.
After Silent Zero, Arwen. Go ahead, Adam and Chocolate.
Okay, so if we think of it as a liquid in there, that liquid will sit there forever and the thing will sit on top. And that's because it's not going to move. It's not going to interact with it. It's not going to get out of the tank. What's currently going off at the moment is we've got, take that away, Tony. We've got entropy taking place. Now, you want to describe, so it won't sit there forever. You want to describe that as a structural support. I'm saying from a molecular point of view, there is no structure in there. What we've got at the moment are lots of sulfur hexafluorides undergoing entry, trying to interact with the things they can interact with and escaping. Where they can't escape is through the tin foil. So there's trillions and trillions of collisions occurring right now, each one totally independent of anything, any other collision that's occurring on the surface of it. So at no point is there any structure underneath there because nothing is in the same place for a microsecond. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We do have
liquid evaporates. Liquid evaporates, so it's the same process except a little slower. But sorry, just wanted to throw that in there.
No, don't shut up and just give me a minute. Yeah, just me and Chocolate as we asked for. Yeah.
Yep.
So are you cool with that, Chocolate? If we can visualize what the gas molecules are doing and what liquid molecules or solid molecules would be doing, that's why I can say structural support. But we've got support from pressure, which is only temporary as entropy will degrade that. So it's only the false concentration underneath, which is having its releasing.
But that concentration is strong enough to support structurally, right? The aluminum foil.
Not structurally.
It's there's enough pressure in there to give it support for a short amount of time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sure.
But there's no structure in there to give it the support. It's just the trillions and trillions of molecules, hitting it. And because they're bigger and chunkier compared to the other molecules that are coming down, it sits there until that equilibrium is reached with the air pressure and the sulfur hexafluoride. When the two are no longer there, there's no collisional difference between the two, above and below the foil, and therefore it just falls through the medium because there's no collision difference.
Can I have my input?
I'm rambling now.
No, come on.
Oh, God.
One sec, Adam.
Arwen, he was talking to me. Can I even, respond to him?
You weren't done, sorry. Because
He hasn't
everybody
even
else
responded.
talked.
Hello, everyone.
Arwen?
Hello. It's the
Arwen.
fourth time Adam said, can I just explain this to Chocolate? So he gets to his explanation. Everyone else is like, oh, well, he's done now. To Chocolate. Go ahead, Chocolate.
Yeah, man, I don't even speak a whole lot. Damn. Arwen. Shit. All right,
Hey, I
so
was the
Adam.
one speaking up first.
All right, Adam. Yes, I understand completely what you're saying, right? I agree. You would rather use the word pressure. I get it. The only thing that I slightly was like, because, all right, you heard me say to Brian already about what I think the problem with using the word structure is, right? You heard that. So I'm in agreement with all of that. The only thing I'm saying is, for me, all right, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, and I accept it if I am. But what I'm saying is, if you can use it, that word, that description, to describe what's going on with a boat, and let's say it was liquid in there, and we have the same effect, pretty much the same effect, because it would float on the water, right, or a liquid, and it would it's floating on this gas. So to use the description the same, I don't see a problem with it. That's the only thing that I'm saying.
Generally, that is the reason I see a problem with it. As I think Nathan started out on this, yeah? It's about it might be very useful as a to visualize it like that. But actually, from a molecular point of view, when we're describing what's going off and the differential between phases, states of matter, and how they differ in their behavior, is wholly incorrect, and it will only lead to confusion down the line. It might be very convenient now to use that for people to have a grasp and understanding, but the understanding you give them is incorrectly describing the differences between liquids and gases and solids. And that's why it's better to maybe spend this time arguing over whether we call it structural support or just a support from the pressure differential, so that we've got the fuller understanding to move forward on, as opposed to a way of figuring it out that's not technically correct.
Okay, everyone else, just one sec. Unless Chocolate's got anything to add, I'm going to go to Silent Zero, then Arwin.
No, I'm good. I'm cool with that, Adam.
Put me in the queue, Nathan, please.
After Arwin. Go ahead, Silent Zero.
I just wanted to say why we can call it a structure. Is like, if you think about have you guys seen the pool, like a pool with the little balls on those, like where the kids jump in and there's a lot of little balls. Let's say you have a pool of full of balls, and then you put a sheet of plywood on top of it, right? Even though the balls are not attached together, they're able to form a structure to support the sheet of plywood on top of it. That's pretty much the same thing to me, and how I see it. That's the same thing happening with the gas. Is they're so close together that they're able to form a structure to support that that piece of thin foil.
Okay, Arwin, go ahead.
All right. So I think, well, I kind of came in halfway, but this situation with the tinfoil, I think it is like mentally slightly misleading because of what you're seeing, right? Because there's nothing being supported. What is effectively happening is the same thing as with a helium balloon. What's actually happening here is the air has a different density to the heavier gas below, and it is inside of the boat actually pulling it up. The differential between the gas inside of that little boat versus the hexafluoride around it is pulling it up because of relative density disequilibrium. There is no support. It's literally being pulled up because of the differential. That's what actually goes.
That's incorrect.
But there is support.
What do you mean inside the boat?
Right, hang on.
Hold on. Everyone, hold on.
That's how boats work, right?
You're
That's
all
why
too
they
keen.
float.
Hello? You're all too keen to get your points in. Well, Adam has explained this concisely. Oh, no, he wasn't concise. Everyone was jumping over the top of him while he explained it. Okay. There is a very distinct difference between a boat that is sat on water when you have what Arwin's just described. You've got two different mediums. There's a difference between them, and the equilibrium that can be achieved from the boat on the water isn't the same as the sulfur hexafluoride attempting to expand in all directions like all gases do. Now, as it tries to expand in all directions, it is impeded by the tinfoil. Therefore, there is a high degree of pressure. That would be molecules of sulfur hexafluoride hitting the bottom of the boat and then bouncing back down into the chamber. So that is what keeps it up. But the entire time that is happening, the boat is effectively sinking. No, not sinking. The sulfur hexafluoride is going between the gaps in the air that's surrounding it. Therefore, there is no point whatsoever where it's at the same level. It's constantly, from our vantage point relative to us, going down as the sulfur hexafluoride fills the availability of volume between the gaps in the existing air. That is very different to being suspended by water, which does have intermolecular bonds, weak though they may be. You have got a certain degree of structural support versus a certain degree of pressure that's trying to escape a container. So they might look the same, they're not.
I disagree.
Well, the same
because
thing
if
is
you
gonna
pour
happen
in a
to
little
water.
hexafluoride in the boat, it'll immediately drop down because
Not
there
only
is that differential keeping it up.
not only that, if you let all the gas escape so that it goes halfway into the container and then pull the lid across so that nothing else can escape and make it sealed, then it wouldn't do what Nathan's saying. He's relying on entropy to claim that it's sinking. But the reality is, if it was sealed, the container would, the gas that's inside the container would provide the support. It's just not structural. So when Adam made the original point, which is why I picked him up, his original words were, you can use the term structural support with solids and liquids, but not gases. Well, we see that there's a support, but the problem is there's no structure. So when Adam explained it, his answer effectively said why we shouldn't use the term structural support, because it's pressure that's doing it. The reason why this tinfoil thing is doing what it's doing is because of the force of pressure. But because Brian says he doesn't like the word pressure and uses structural support instead to describe it, like Adam says, it's insufficient if you don't go that one step further and say it is actually pressure that's causing this. So yes, you can imagine it as structure that's holding it like a solid or a liquid, like Chocolate was pointing out. And when you challenge that with gases, it doesn't work because there's no structure, because they're all bouncing around, right? So by extension, when you explain that one step further, you end up with, well, what is it with gases? And the only thing it can be is pressure.
Objection.
Is it my goal?
Yeah, I've got an objection to that too, in terms of your misapprehension that if you sealed this, it would stay like that. That's wrong.
Don't major on the minor.
I'm not going to.
Well, I want to.
Yeah. Is it my turn yet?
John, then Brian, you're in the queue. Sorry. Go ahead, Brian. Then John.
Yeah, the term I use, structural support. I termed it that way on purpose because that is the most intuitive term. To back up what I'm saying, Silent Zero's first language is not English, but yet Silent Zero understands what I mean when I say structural support. When we start separating out the phases of matter and how they act, right? We are then going into convoluted complexity that is not necessary to explain this and describe this to the general public.
I fundamentally disagree. Hold on, let me just disagree. At a fundamental level, when we're describing gas expanding into the availability of volume, and that entropic description applies perfectly in terms of the amount of pressure placed upon the bottom of this tinfoil due to the increased concentration of the more inert gas below it. It's effectively acting like a lid, and even though we're going to see it eventually reach the bottom as it disperses, that effect is in line with our understanding of how gas works. Now, as soon as we start describing it as having structure below it, we're oversimplifying it, dumbing it down, if you will, to make the concept, the notion understandable, but not the overall gas behaviour. Why not just stick in line with overall gas behaviour when describing this?
Yeah, because that's an overall gas behaviour. We've got before.
I'm asking Brian.
Can I?
Just one sec. Just one sec, Chocolate and Anthony. Just one sec. Go ahead, Brian.
Because that's a specific topic that's based on a description. That's a description. That's what that is. That's only a description. The only difference between liquids and gases is that one of them has a singular downward vector. They're both fluids. They will both fill any shape container.
No, that's bullshit.
Hang on a second. It's not bullshit. It's not bullshit. The difference between liquids and gases is gases will move about in all directions. Right? Right? Whereas liquids have a singular downward vector, simply because they are described as being attached.
It's not true. It's not true.
What's smoke? What about smoke? About smoke?
Well, that's not a liquid or a gas.
Well, what about superfluid helium that climbs things?
Look, who has put any thought into this? Would you reckon I put any thought into this? Do we reckon that I put any thought into this, lads?
Okay, let's not get into that. Hold on, John is next. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't get to finish what I was saying, so forget it.
Well, Brian, if you want to go ahead and finish, then I'll go. That's fine.
Feel free, Brian.
It's really difficult because I'm getting to the crescendo, or I'm getting halfway through it, and I'm being blocked. Look, I don't want to be giving out about that. I just want to get to the point. The point is, right, that it doesn't, like, if you take all these little molecules, particles, whatever way you want to describe them, right? And they're moving about in all vectors, right? And you get enough of a concentration of them together, they will offer a structural support to matter. They will offer it. That's why Felix Baumgartner slowed down as he was coming in, because there was more structure, more matter that he was falling through. I mean,
yeah, not structure though. Not structure.
Okay, look, you two can go back and forth for 10 minutes. Let Brian actually get to the end of his point so I can get John to join, and then I think Silent Zero's got something to add again. Go ahead.
If I call it density support, right? That's a lot better than pressure support. You can't call it pressure support too. Well, because pressure can mean a headache, right? Structural support is the most intuitive description.
Not if there's no structure. There's no structure with gases.
Says who?
Where's the structure with gases?
They matter in enough concentration. They get objects weigh more in a vacuum. Why is that?
They don't have intermolecular bonding though, so there's no structure.
Who cares? But who cares?
Well, it's important for your term.
Can I add something?
For your term.
Can I add something? Just to try to help Brian out a little
like
bit.
a structure, but it's not a structure.
Pressure.
Right. If you look up structure, right, and you look similar words to structure, right, as a noun, you got construction, form, formation, shape, composition, fabric, anatomy, makeup, constitution, organization, system, arrangement, layout, design, frame, framework, configuration, right, and so on and so on, right? These are some of these words are pretty much what he is saying. He's not saying it is a structure. He's saying it could be the arrangement of the gases, right? The design of how the gases are moving around.
Hello. The arrangement of something that's anisotropic, that's random in its structure, if you want to describe it with that word. There is no organisation.
When the sulfur hexafluoride is in the tank, it's like, obviously it's gas, so it's moving around, but it's in the tank, and the arrangement allows for a support to put a tinfoil thing on it.
Wrong. The tank does that. No. Hello. No. You're talking about an artificially induced scenario with a man-made fish tank. No, the gas doesn't do that. This lidded container did that because that's what you've created. You've created.
What about a helium balloon?
What about it?
Helium balloon. I mean, a helium balloon. All gas is contained, Nathan. So you're saying the tinfoil on the
I have a better example, Brian, but I'll let you continue. Clouds.
Yeah. Well,
let me get this, please.
I've been trying to introduce John for the last 5 minutes. Please let him have a go. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. The problem is we aren't witnessing structure, and if we're going to talk about it with a molecular explanation, it would be better to use interference, because the movement of the gas particles are interfering with what that aluminum foil would normally do.
Objection.
Now, that is something we describe as pressure when it collides with the walls of its container.
Right, yeah. So what you've just done there is introduced another term called interference. All that does now is just add another term to confuse. But the word that we're all trying
to... It's a correct description.
No, the correct description is simply pressure. It's the collisions, the force that the collisions are applying against the surfaces. That is, by definition, pressure.
Yes.
But pressure can't be a force and part of the equation of force. You understand that, right?
Oh dear. Yes. Hold on. Just repeat that, John. Just because I had that exact point earlier. I just got in my head that that's relevant here. Can you just repeat that?
Pressure cannot be a force if it is part of the equation of force.
It's not though, is it? Pressure.
Eli in the queue.
Pressure. Wait a sec. Pressure is defined in physical sciences. It's the perpendicular force per unit area. So it's the collision of the molecules. That's the force against the surface. So you're not putting pressure in both sides of the equation. That's wrong.
No. How do you define force first?
An interaction. A push or a pull.
Okay, you're going to use the pseudoscience descriptions.
No.
Why don't we
I'm just
just point
pointing
at the
out that when
cause?
you said that pressure was being used in the beginning and the end of the sentence or the formula, it isn't. And now what you're doing, rather than address that point, you're saying, well, how do you define force?
I'll
Because
address
it's
it.
not it's not using the word pressure.
Force can only be described as pressure over an area. That is the best description of the word force, and it's demonstrable.
What's the problem?
But pressure is also being described as the force per over a surface. So what we're doing is we're using any other word possible rather than say pressure. It's the same as gravity. We'll use any other word possible to describe gravity on our side because it's not gravity. We know it's not gravity, but we can use any other word to describe it, and they go mad at us when we try redefining terms. Well, that's exactly what's happening now because there's no way. This is the problem with Brian's point. Because there's no structure with Brian's point with gas. There is no structure. There's no intermolecular bonding.
Okay, Arwin.
Right, so
okay, hold on. Hello. Control, please. Arwin and then Eli. Go ahead, Arwin.
Right. So I don't know. I don't understand why there's such a hassle over this and disagreement. It's very simple. Yeah, it is pressure, and it is caused by relative density disequilibrium because the air inside is pushing down exactly like a boat. And just because the gas escapes over time doesn't mean that the current scenario before entropy has taken its final course, it's still the same. It's a fluid, and it works like that. So there's a disequilibrium in the gases relation, and yeah, that causes a push, just like with a helium balloon as it gets pushed up. Because of relative density disequilibrium. I'm done.
Perfect. Excellently summarized, Arwin. Eli, and then I think Solar wants to add something.
Yeah.
No, it was me.
I don't know
Eli,
how we
Eli.
can... Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, truth be told.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys. I've been sitting here listening to everybody, and you guys are poo-pooing on Brian's explanation using a model for how gas works, right? So if you guys are going to do that, then I want to see your little balls for how the model of how gas works, because that's it. I mean, it's just a description, and it's just how to explain the actual workings of gases. But I want to see your little balls first of how these little molecules work first before you poop on Brian's explanation.
Okay, so we're not poo-pooing on Brian's explanation.
No,
because
because I kind of that's
Yeah,
kind
Eli, keep moving.
of what I was going to try to say.
Let's just let Eli get his words in. Go ahead, Eli.
So yeah, it just feels like our concept of how gas works is interfering with how we choose to speak about what we're seeing, the description of what we're seeing. Like we're trying to find words that are different from what we see because we see a difference between solids, liquids, and gases, which is fine, which is fair enough. But the thing is, like, water too is subject to entropy. Water too evaporates. It's not going to stay there forever. The only thing that is a common denominator is all of these things are contained. But if not contained,
right,
all of
now
it is
that
subject
goes
to
to my
entropy
point.
anyway.
Because if there's not a wall of a container, right, to interfere with the pathway of that particle, what is your gas pressure?
So let me address the previous point.
Hold on.
So the previous.
No one's addressed him.
What's next?
Just don't leave it
I thought it
rhetorical.
was rhetorical.
Did anybody actually listen to what John just said? It's like you're all just waiting for your turn to speak.
It was a rhetorical statement, surely.
It wasn't
Surely that wasn't a
rhetorical.
genuine question.
It wasn't rhetorical. There's an answer to
There's
his
no
question.
gas pressure without a container.
Right. Hold on. Why is the chaos when the main point comes? Who said there won't be any pressure? Yeah, right. Let's have that concisely. John, do you want to ask your question again? Someone can answer it. It's not rhetorical.
No.
Yeah, the answer is no. You can't. No pressure.
Without
no, I would say what
May I answer sleeping water?
John,
for fuck's sake. Sleeping water.
Sorry, it does appear that me saying, John, go ahead, repeat it, means 5 other people decide that's their time to speak.
I'm John.
Right.
And so is my wife.
If
No, I
there
was
is
next.
not
I'm about two
a
people. I
wall
was
of a
after
container,
For fuck's sake, Silent Zero, what is your malfunction?
Holy shit! I apologize.
Yeah,
A lot
well,
of
this is
people
now the
jump in
5th
front of me,
fucking
bro.
time. Shut up.
I've been the most.
So you're
quiet.
going to keep
What's wrong
fucking
with you,
waffling?
man?
Go ahead,
If
John.
he's been waiting, Nathan,
Oh,
in fairness.
God.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Just try it for the 7th time. I kid you not.
Right. The problem is John's had the microphone and he's not spoke twice. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, obviously, while I'm trying to, for the 8th time, introduce him to speak, I think the moment there's a pause, everyone else should jabber on and tell me how he's not speaking.
The reason I said interference is if you don't have the walls of the container to interfere with the path of the gas particle, how are you going to describe pressure?
Okay.
You can't.
Right. Let me have a go. Give me 2 minutes, right? I want to go back 3 comments earlier. Somebody said that we're poo-pooing Brian's explanation here, and he said based on the concept of gas, our understanding of the concept of gas behavior. We're not poo-pooing the idea. So that's a misrepresentation. What we're saying is Brian's explanation for structural support is insufficient when it comes to gases because there's no intermolecular bonding between the molecules. There is no structure. Okay? So
You're only saying the same thing that he just went against. You're saying
because my position is correct.
Well, no, he could ask you to show him exactly what it is that you're stating, and you won't be able to show it to him. You won't be able to show him all these little gas molecules.
We've
You won't be able to show him these little gas molecules. That's the point. It's a model. It's a way of describing. That's just another way.
Stop. No, that's fair. Everyone, hold on. That's fair enough. You've been challenged to present a demonstration of your claim to be reified convention, in this case, how gas behaves. So, I don't know, was it Solar who said this? Let's see it then. Or was it Truth Be Told?
It's on screen.
Truth be told.
Hold on,
It's on screen right now. Real world demonstration.
Yeah, but that's not the point. He's
I'm in
talking
the
about
queue.
the model.
Oh, hold on. Go ahead,
No,
Solo.
his
I'll just
criticism-
1 second. Hold on. Hold on. There's a couple of people that will just keep interrupting you unless they get a chance to actually speak. We can start with Silent Zero, then Flat Earth Solar, then get back into it. Go ahead, Silent Zero. Sorry to shout at you.
I forgot my points. So thank you.
That's fine.
Nathan.
That's fine. We'll move on. Solar, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Anthony in that when we're talking about pressure, it's pressing. We're talking about what's pressing on that boat, keeping the boat aloft in that gas. It's the gas pressure that's pressing on it. So I agree that structural is perhaps not the right word, in that if you were standing in a gale force
who
wind
asked you?
and that wind is horizontal, it can actually blow you off your feet. Now, that's not structurally blowing you off your feet, it's pressing you off your feet. So I think pressure is the right word when describing gas behavior. Like you said, let's not go into physical solid balls like a ball pit, because those are solids. Let's not go into liquids. Let's remain in gas and talk about gas pressing on the walls of its container. And if one wall of that container is not there, it's going to press on the objects placed into it.
I disagree. Because it wouldn't do that.
Can I go in the queue?
It's the disequilibrium that actually does the pressing, right? Again, if you fill that aluminium foil boat with hexafluoride, it's immediately going to drop to the bottom because
Correct.
it's the disequilibrium between the gas and the hexafluoride that keeps it like that.
Correct. There's a high concentration of sulfur hexafluoride below what has become effectively a lid. Now that lid is going to keep it there because you've got a higher concentration below than above, therefore the disequilibrium is what's making it float. If you were to seal it off completely, I'm not majoring on the minors here, Anthony, but eventually that wouldn't be in effect anymore. You'd have an equilibrium with all of it distributed equally between whatever normal gas was left in there when you sealed it and the sulfur hexafluoride. It'd eventually dissipate, they'd all reach an equilibrium and it would just sink to the bottom because there's as much above as there is below, and therefore the density of the foil will overcome the density of the gas. But while there's a disequilibrium, as it sits, exactly as Arwen's just described very concisely, you've got a gas in high concentration pressing up when it's not pressing down. That means it bounces off the bottom and then bounces off the tinfoil. Bounces off the bottom, it doesn't escape. Now, there are gaps for it to escape, so it will eventually. That's entropy. But in the meantime, you can suspend something on that because there's a high amount of collisions with the bottom of the tinfoil.
Can I just add to that, Nathan?
Yes, go ahead,
In terms
Adam.
of what we got on screen, from the structure of the tank, that structure of the tank is forcing the entropic behavior of the gas to push solely which way, which is the only way it can exert anything. Anything excites down, left, right, is rebounding instantly off the tank. So the only way for entry to play out is through the top, and that's obstructed, look. So all of that gas energy is being held there by the millions of collisions as entropy tries to take place. And the structure of the tank is the thing. And as Alwyn eloquently put, that's what's actually happening. It's those differentials between the two systems you've temporarily set up that you're seeing there. Done.
We're missing the elephant in the room, guys.
What's that?
We can all describe this and we can agree with it, right? But Adam originally said you can use the term structural support with solids and liquids, but not gases. Me and Chocolate challenged it because you can use the term structural support with gases because it appears to be supporting it with the structure of the gases. However, it doesn't go far enough, this is the elephant in the room. There's no structure with gases. There's no intermolecular bonding. So we can't use that term with gases. Yes, it describes what we see, but it's not enough in the physics because of the way gas molecules behave. So the only word that we can use really is pressure, is because it's a force. So this is why no matter how much you
don't tell us why.
about this,
Just let Brian oppose it. He's the only one in opposition, or the main one in opposition. Just let him oppose it. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, I completely disagree with that, simply because it's not, because the word structure, I use the word structural support. As I said before, I say it again because it's intuitive. People get it. The problem is that we're working off of a model, right, that's based off of description, a model that's for describing. Hang on. Can you show me these little gas particles going around as independent entities, or is that a description of the effect?
you're redefining the term structural.
Hang on, I'll ask you again. Can you show me, right? Can you support the model that you're using to describe?
Hang on. Before we get to your point, I had an objection before you raised your second point. So we'll deal with my objection first, then we'll come to your question. Your point that you made was that structural is an okay word, and I'm going to say that you're redefining the term structural so that you can shoehorn your jigsaw piece into the hole that it's not meant to be in, because there is no structure here, Brian. You've got to accept that the intermolecular bonding is not present with gases, so there is no structure. But you're going to redefine that and say, well, the way I'm using it is to say that there is structure there. No, there is no structure. So now we can move to your point.
But may I say something? Oh, go ahead.
Structure requires rigidity.
Yes. And there is none here.
Just let Brian respond. And then, look. You've thrown a lot at him. You've said it. We've heard it. It's been repeated. Brian's going to get one more. No, I'm saying structure's fine response. And then we'll go to Silent Zero. Go ahead, Brian.
No, I'm just going to point out that Anthony is using a descriptive model as the support for his claim.
Bollocks! I'm not. I'm using.
That's what you're doing.
Can you show us all these little singular particles going around, right? And show us all these little bonds that they have broken. Show us all this.
Two fallacies today, Bright. That's reverse and proof. If you're going to state that, then what you have to do to support your conjecture is show us your alternative molecular models for gases, solids, and liquids, which supports the suggestion that there's a structure there.
Correct.
You're the one
I don't have to show that.
Everything.
Yeah, you do.
So
it's a better proof reversal fallacy.
Yeah.
No, I don't have to show that because I'm not using. I'm not using it. Hang on. I'm not making the positive claim. The positive claim comes from the descriptive model that's being used.
Well, are you, little toe rag? You're saying
Hold on. Let's clear this up. Hold on. No, Brian. No. I told you immediately this is your claim. You were like, yeah, the structural support bit is my claim.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, there you go.
But, hang on. I'm not making the claim, any claims about little gas particles, little particles being connected when it's liquid and then unconnecting when becoming gas. I'm not making that claim. That's a descriptive model, and It's a good descriptive model, but I'm not making any claims about it because I can't show you what's actually happening,
You
and
are
neither
making
can
a claim.
anyone else.
Your claim is the word structure. You're
I'm
putting
claiming it's
structure to molecules that don't have any.
a descriptive model, and it can't be used, right, to poo-poo what I'm saying.
Right, hang on, stop. Your claim is that the word structure in the word structural support, your claim is that structure is present with gas molecules. That is your claim.
My claim is that gas can give the effect of structural support.
No, that's moving the goalposts.
No. Right,
Hold on. No. That is moving. Hold on. Just everyone stop. Anthony's right. Because when I tried to do this for you, and I was like, no, it's an acceptable analogy, you wouldn't have it. Now you're saying, well, it's kind of like describing it as.
No, I'm not. I'll make it very clear, right? Very clear. Gas offers structural support.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
He's just chanting his claim. What are you doing? He's chanting now. Okay, everyone, hold on. Everyone, hold on. Okay, Solar, go ahead.
Oh, not me?
To
Okay.
Brian,
Sorry.
To Brian, I just wanted to say what we're trying to elucidate here for you is that when you talk about the structural support in cement, it's the steel structure contained inside the concrete that actually gives the concrete its structural support. So that steel fabricated lattice that's encased in the concrete is the physical, tangible thing giving the support to all the weight above it. We're saying gas has no bonds of any kind. So the word structural support implies physical, tangible support.
Show us that gas without all these little bonds. Show us all these little bonds. Show us all these things. That's not my claim.
Okay. Let me just. Hello, everyone, calm down. Hello. Let me just reiterate Brian's point. He's saying, if you're going to challenge my claim that structural support is a reasonable description when showing something supported by gas, then if your rebuttal is to say that no, that doesn't work because I say gas is unbonded. Okay. If you say, according to Brian, if you're going to challenge him with unbonded gas, show him unbonded gas. That's not unreasonable as a response from Brian.
Thank you, Nathan.
How about I actually oppose him on the meaning of the word structure, which I have presented, right?
We've already done that.
I agree.
We've already done that. We've already done that. We've done it. No, not again. We've moved on. Brian's countered it. Now we're moving on. Brian's countered it. He said, if your rebuttal, I'll repeat it. If your rebuttal's to say you're going to use the convention of gases breaking their bonds, that would be intermolecular bond breaking. Show me a broken bond with gas. That's perfectly acceptable from Brian. We're not going to rehash his structure definition 5 more times. No.
Well, a structure requires organization and
Owen's
complexity.
doing it anyway.
Gas
yeah,
is
I've seen it.
anything
It's
but
on
complex.
screen. I've seen it. I've left it on.
Create.
Owen, we've done this 15 times and I've put it on screen. You're right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but we've already done it and Brian has now, for the first time in 20 minutes, actually got a counter to it.
Can I
counter? But I wasn't there at that part. I don't know how long the conversation's been going about this specifics.
Long time. We've had structure isn't a reasonable, from a semantic point of view, word that's useful in this description. That's happened 15 times. And I've put it on screen. I can see you've shared it and I've put it up for the audience to see. But Brian has now said, no, if you're going to use this convention against me, because according to you, there is no bond between gas, show me that there's no bonds between the gas.
Okay.
So just so this can continue now. So I've saved you a bit of time, and if you check Skype, I've done you today's thumbnail. So
oh wow, cool.
Save you a bit of time this afternoon.
Ace. Thank you.
It's a bribe to keep the show going.
I don't see it. I'll have a look. I'll dig it out and put it up on screen.
Direct to you.
I just want to say something to Sleeping, if I'm allowed, Nathan.
Yes, of course. Go ahead. I was trying to introduce you earlier, but they wouldn't have it.
Yeah, I want to say that the only reason why Sleeping Water is saying that you cannot have a structure is because he's basing it on a preconceived model that he has in his head, right? That the molecules are not attached or anything, and that's when Brian was
Yeah,
asking
Brian said
for
it.
to show it to be demonstrated. No, that was
Okay.
Sleeping Warrior though.
Okay, so let me respond. So if Brian's counter is that I need to demonstrate that gas molecules are unbonded, then and because I'm basically what he's doing there is changing the way that we understand how gas molecules behave, and then asking me to invent my own new one to explain it. And I'm like, no. The understanding in gas law and the way that gas molecules behave is that they bounce around in all directions.
That's not what he
free to-
said.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it
He
is.
said to me, or he said in rebuttal, he said, show me gas molecules that are unbonded. Show me them bouncing around. The problem with that is gas molecules
Yeah,
for
he
the
actually
most.
show you them.
Just let him. Look, Anthony's now challenged the rebuttal. Why is this happening? Go ahead,
don't know.
Anthony.
Everybody needs to interrupt.
Now Arwen's doing it. Let's try that again.
Okay,
That's
so-
twice. Let's try it. See if we get it to 8 like last time. Go ahead, Anthony.
So the rebuttal is show me gas molecules that are unbonded. So in my recent upload, I showed the butane because it's not a colorless gas. You can see the gas, even though it's all moving around in directions. They're moving at fast speed. You can see the molecules, right? Maybe not individually at our scale, but if you got a microscope out, I'm sure that you could probably see the molecules moving in between the thing. But my point is that the
That's
butane
crap.
is not
Stop.
see-through.
No, that's crap. You're not going to get away with that. I'm sure you can.
Okay. All right, I'll show it then. I'll show it. Give me a sec. Am I still screen sharing?
Yeah, but you're just going to show us gas.
Yeah, I know he is, but
Well,
at least let him do it
yeah.
so you can challenge it on that, Brian.
Yeah, I will.
I'm gonna have to get into it. Just bear with me a sec.
While you're doing
I
that,
need this.
was it
You've
Silent
got to
Zero?
concede.
So was it Solar or Zero? I forget who it was that was wanting to get a point in from
Me.
Discord.
Zero.
Yeah, and one more point. You guys were doing that thing where you're asking a replacement of a model when somebody's challenging, and I think we established that with the Glover so many times that replace how you say reputation of a model isn't independent of replacement or something like that. So I don't think that Brian needs to show you a replacement of a model to
Falsification.
challenge the current model.
That's correct. Go ahead, Chocolate. You're about to say it, so you might as well.
Falsification is independent of replacement.
That's correct. That's why this is going ahead. That's why this is sliding. Brian's, on his game.
We've not had
I've looked
falsification, though, have we? We've
Go
not
ahead.
had falsification.
Hold on. Go ahead,
I'm
Adam.
about to do it.
Hold on.
I'm about to do it.
Can I interrupt?
We're waiting
Not
for.
yet.
We're waiting for. Let's everyone calm down. Waiting for Anthony to get queued. While we're doing that, we're a little side discussion, which Adam's going to round out. Then we're going to see the presentation, and then I'm sure Arwen's got something to add. Go ahead, Adam. Then Anthony. Then Arwen.
I wasn't going to say anything. I just wanted to say I want to interrupt. That's all.
We're
I
not
want to say something then
gonna-
too after them.
Okay. Go ahead, Adam.
I'm not going to get a falsification from Brian, but what Brian will get from me is a concedement. Yeah, I can't win that argument if your desire is for me to show you an individual actual atom freely moving. I can give you
Finally,
demonstrations of
finally.
that, Brian, yeah.
That's
Yeah. It's a great place to take the argument, but it kills the discussion because Brian can no longer move forwards and neither can we because we can.
That's
now
correct.
just-
Don't steal that from me, Adam. I was going to make that point right at the very end.
Sorry, but you
Yes,
clarify as to why then.
Yes,
Yeah.
Brian's
Hang on,
shooting
hang on.
himself in the face with this. I know. I want that to be highlighted too, but just not this stage, Adam. But yeah, can you the other bit of your point? Can you repeat? Because I've rumpused it now.
So I will quite happily concede that if for Brian to say I'm wrong, and the proof he's asked for me to do that is to show him an individual gas molecule moving freely, I can't. So at that point,
That'll do.
concede.
That leads beautifully on. Anthony, go ahead and try.
Okay, so I don't agree with Adam.
Put me in the queue, Nathan.
Okay,
Yeah,
Brian.
you can respond, Brian.
It's all right. We'll ask Brian to show his structural support afterwards. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
No, don't
So
worry.
Brian
We'll get into that. Adam's tried to take the thunder too. We'll get there.
So Brian's
Adam
rebuttal
said
was he
there
wanted
was
me to
the
show.
kinetic theory of
Solar's going to
gas.
rumpus you out, Anthony. Hold on. Go ahead, Solar.
I just wanted to say what Adam was talking about there is the kinetic theory of gas movement. and it is still a theory because it's never been demonstrated.
Colloquial
Well, we're
theory.
about
Fair
to
enough.
see.
Okay, Anthony, the floor's yours. You presented. Go ahead.
So I'm about to rebut Brian's claim that I couldn't demonstrate individual gas molecules being unbonded. So here we've got the two containers that are separated by a tap. In one container, it is filled with a concentration of bromine gas. You can see the gas. Note the tone and the depth of the color in the bromine gas. In the other container, it's vacuated. There's nothing in it. They've removed all the air. They call it a vacuum. When the tap's open, Brian, this volume of gas will now evenly disperse in between all of these, but noticeably the color it'll go from being a vibrant color to a pale color. That represents the concentration of molecules that you say that I can't demonstrate has been halved or quartered. So basically, when I press play, you'll see there you go. Now look at the color. The color now has been diluted massively, right? So that shows that the individual molecules that were bromine in that container have now filled all of the available volume, and it's the concentration has been fractionized into a tiny percentage because it's nowhere near as concentrated. If you don't accept that that's a demonstration of gas molecules that are not bonded, I can't go any further than that.
No, it's not. You're not showing any gaps. You're not showing it. No, that's a total fail.
Not you, Nathan.
Well, it is a total fail. You've already had Adam concede why it's a total fail before you've made the demonstration.
Right,
I thought
you,
you'd make
Nathan.
it. I thought you'd at least accept the humour in this, but you haven't. Clearly.
Brian, respond. Come on.
My bad.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
ahead, Brian.
I respond very, very easily. I can also pour a drop of orange juice into a glass of water, and a glass of water will become a different colour. But that doesn't mean I can make claims about what's happening on the micro scale.
Hang on, would you accept that when you drop your drop of orange...
Hang on.
Hold on, let him. I was about to say this. You stopped me, now you're stopping Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, leave me respond, Anthony. Yeah, I can't make claims about it, what's happening on the macro scale. I can only state what I see. That's all.
I think you're trolling.
No, he's not trolling. You haven't demonstrated. Hold on, let me just summarise this so we don't have to argue about it, right? You haven't shown bonds. You haven't shown them breaking. You've shown something getting lighter. And then just said, if you don't accept that that's showing... How do I know in the first instance, when you show the bromine at high concentration, I've got to be honest, I didn't know what you were showing me. I didn't know if it was a liquid. I didn't know it wasn't liquid. Now, the fact that you're telling me that means that the gas has actually got bonds that are becoming more and more spread out, well, how do I know that that's the case? Just by this demonstration, it doesn't demonstrate that.
Okay, so now we're at the point where the conversation's been reduced to absurdism, and we're now into nihilism.
No, it has not.
It is.
Okay, Anthony, no, fine. If you want to think it's been descended into absurdity, explain to me, pop that back on screen, perfect. Explain to me how this shows anything to do with gases being bonded or unbonded. Where's that shown in your demonstration here? How do I extract that from this? You tell me if it's absurd to say it isn't showing that.
I told you to pay particular attention to the concentration of colour. The colour physically gets lighter. That lighter is showing you the change in concentration of molecules per volume. That change in molecules per volume is reflecting that the volume's getting bigger, the gases can't fill it to the same pressure, they're being spread out more. That is a direct evidence of the intermolecular bondings that are not there with gas pressure showing themselves to not be there, because if they were there, all you would see is that this volume of the bromine slither into, say, this point here, it would stay there as this globule that it was there, but it's now into there because it would have intermolecular bonds. So by doing this exact thing and changing the concentration of the colour, you are literally seeing that effect that you're describing and saying that you don't understand it or don't accept it.
You haven't shown them unbonded. This doesn't show them unbonded at all. I'm not seeing.
Yes, it does.
I would no. Let me just no. Brian's took us to a point where of intellectual honesty. So what it does is it demonstrates perfectly well if we sit within the convention that these molecules are doing that. But Brian took it to the point of his request was to show an individual molecule behaving. We cannot do that now.
Which is why I said
no. Anthony's going to get flipped onto Brian now. Just let it happen. Go ahead, Adam. You take this moment.
it's now up to Brian as to how we can proceed. We do sit here intellectually honest and say yes, we cannot demonstrate that. However, all the ways in which we've used vehicles, NRTs, it's all based on this premise and the way it works. So if we're going to deny us that premise and step outside of this convention, which we're all familiar with, and go into a new convention, that's fine, but it's going to need at least the same level of validation. So what I'd like to see is a picture of two gas molecules bonded, please, Brian.
No,
answer.
not necessarily bonded. Hold on. No, he doesn't have to demonstrate. Hold on, Brian. Hold on. He doesn't have to demonstrate the antithesis of Anthony's claim. He's got a claim in the first instance that they provide structural support. Now I'd like to see that, not the demonstration with the gas, but I'd like to see what is supporting it. Show me that, please, Brian.
Hold on.
What do you mean, Nathan?
Can I interject something quickly?
Hold on. This is the crescendo. Bloody hell, Arwin. This is the crescendo. What Brian's done has just been summarised by Adam. I've got to do again because of Arwin. Is take it to the point where he's saying you can't use that convention to show a pressing of an individual unbonded molecule to force this piece of tinfoil up. Okay? As an intellectual, honest person, I will agree with him. I've let it continue as a result, just so it can reach this point where I go, okay, you're the one with the claim, Brian. Now show your structural support.
I want to point out a flaw on that
Hello?
statement. Nathan.
Hello? I'll try that third time. Arwin now, Silent Zero. I'll say his name at the beginning and end. Hopefully it will succeed. Third time's a charm. Brian has descended this into removal of the convention. Fine. But he's the one making a claim of structural support, so it's now down to him at the same exact standard level to show it. So, Brian, table's all yours. Brian.
So you want me to show you the effects that I call structural support?
No. I can see the effects. I want to see the thing that's supporting it.
We want to see the structure.
Yeah, you got it.
Come on, Brian.
Yeah, you want to see the structure. Well, I can't show you something.
Oh dear, that's a bad thing to have done then, considering you're the one with the claim here.
I can show you the effect.
Yeah, you've said that. We know. We've all seen that. It's been on screen the whole time.
But I didn't make claims about the micro level.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Right, everyone get him. Get the Irishman quick.
Mexican standoff.
Structure.
Nathan, I need to say something because he never said that the gas was a structure. He said it behaves like a structural. It behaves like that.
See, but that's the only reason.
See, when you see the effect, it gives you that impression. And now you're asking him to replace the model.
He's the one who took it away. I'm not asking him to. He's the one with the original claim. Hello, everybody. I'm trying to respond to Silent Zero. No, he's the one with the original claim. We've contested it based on an understanding within a convention. He said, no, not going to accept that. We go, okay, fine. Back to your original claim then. By your standard, because we can't show it to use that convention, now you've got to. Now Brian's gone, well, I can't, but I'm not making a claim. That was his last thing.
Hang on a second. I didn't get a chance to finish, Nathan. My original claim, right, is that the term structural support is a very intuitive term that people understand very easily, and that's why I use it. Right? That you can show that matter.
Oh, like the word gravity.
Adam, hang on.
Exactly.
I can show, right? I can describe and show demonstrations with that description that people will understand. That's the whole point of it, right? I can't show you gas. I can show you bromine, but I can't show you oxygen as a gas because I can't see it. You can't see it. So asking me to show you something that's invisible is pretty kind of lowballing it now. Let's be honest.
Hold on, it's a low ball when you. So let me get it straight. Hold on. So it's a low ball when we ask you to show it, but when you're challenging them to show you their convention is.
No, I didn't make any claims about the micro level or the macro level. I didn't make claims. I made claims about the concentration and how it behaves.
You said molecules are not free moving, Brian. You made a strong claim
Say that again.
Strong
Adam.
definitive claim that that's not how they're working to support your claim of structure.
Hang on a second. Say that again, Adam. I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Say it again, please.
You made a definitive claim, a very definitive claim. You claim that all of our understanding and our convention of gas behaviour is not valid in this argument yet, and that there is no proof that molecules move freely to support your claim that gas has structure.
No, that's not what happened. No, that's not what happened.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what happened.
Structural support is not recorded.
Hold on, everyone. Look, there's 4 people talking. Hello? Hello? There's 4 people talking. Hello? Hello?
I accused you of moving the goalposts.
Like, stop.
Sorry,
Please.
Nathan. Please give me a chance to respond to that.
I will in a moment. We just want to summarise where we're at. You're saying it's a low blow, but it is correctly summarised by Adam when you challenge the convention. That was where we reached into, but that's why I let it continue.
I didn't make claims about the micro and macro level. The claim was being made towards me, and I said, you can't make that claim if you can't demonstrate it.
Then neither can you. That's the point. Then neither can you. Brian.
I didn't make statements.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Brian, please. Brian, when you're making matters worse, as always.
Nathan, I need your address because I'm sending you a gavel.
Just hear me out. Brian, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If you're going to use that as a challenge, then you have to abide by the same standard. It's your challenge. That's Adam's point.
I wasn't using it as a defense.
Right. Chocolate summarised it, right? And people may say it's now a Mexican standoff. But what has happened is you've took everybody's guns away, mate.
I didn't take everyone's guns away.
Nobody's got a weapon left to argue with.
It's more like an Irish standoff.
No.
May I say something?
No.
Yeah, because the problem we're having is that you saying structural support, you cannot show gas having structure, and then asking, well, can you show gas not having structure? Well, the other side can't do that either.
Yeah, he never said that's what it is.
Hold on. Chaos. Hello. Chaos asked if you could actually interject, so we'll let him. Go ahead, Chaos.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if I'm understanding this correctly, but what about gas? If I pump like airbag on trucks, isn't that gas having a structure even though it's still in the container? It's forcing the container to have the structure.
No, the container's
the
doing that.
giving you the structure.
Exactly, like with the fish tank. This was explained earlier by Adam. I don't know if you were around, but he was explaining how, but for the fact that there's something impeding the entropic effect, so the gas expanding into whatever volume it's got, there's a container stopping it, making there only one route out, causing that to be the direction of travel that's going to impede or be impeded by the tinfoil. Well, that's because of the container. Same way with your airbags. But for the airbags, you're not going to achieve it. Now, if you can
The gas
channel,
just provides pressure.
if you can channel air through a tube, like I made this a similar example earlier still, was if you've got a man that's over a massive fan in a tube, you can create a concentration of pressure to blow the man up. This was used at the end of the Felix Baumgartner explanation, right? But we're still describing the exact same thing in terms of the amount of stuff pressing on something. It's much easier to understand if you've got a fan literally blowing stuff up. But Brian has correctly and fairly brought it to the point where if you're going to challenge it using a convention, you've got to demonstrate the proof of the convention. But then it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and if he can challenge it on not being able to be challenged because you can't show that convention, then the same applies to Brian. He can't then show it, so therefore he can't apply it. That's the point.
Can I respond?
Silent Zero first, because he's desperate to get a word in. Go ahead, Silent Zero. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to answer Chocolate. Chocolate, Brian never said that the air was a structure. He said it behaves as a structure because that's what we see. That's what he said. So he doesn't need to show you the gas being a structure. Okay? All he's doing is explaining or expressing how he sees the effect happening. So therefore, you cannot ask him to show you molecules of gas
He's
being
claiming
together.
it to provide structure.
Because that's your claim.
It doesn't. So it doesn't provide structure. That was the whole point. Because when it moves from liquids and solids,
I am claiming, and I'm going to give it a proper rebuttal now in a moment, but I am claiming from the very start that the term structural support is a very good term because people understand it intuitively. That's why I use it, because it's so simplistic. Now, if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty of it, now leave me finish, Anthony. Now, don't jump in on me, because I'm going to say things here that's going to make you want to jump in. You have to leave me finish, right? Now, you can respond afterwards, and so can Adam and anyone else in Discord, and Nathan and anyone. It has already been established that everyone agrees, now, everybody agrees that water and, let's say, liquids and solids have structure. But liquids and solids, it was also agreed that liquids will press on you and solids will press on you, right? That the ground is pressing up. That was the claim that was made earlier. Liquids will press. Like when I lie in the water, right, it's pressing up. It's like giving me support. I'm not sinking because it's giving me support. And if it's extra salty, like in the Dead Sea, I'll just float forever on the thing, right? Now, if gas is also pressing, as it is, right, and those two have structure and can be described as having structural support, then how come gas can't be described as having structural support also?
Because there's no structure.
Gas is also pressing.
Pressing.
You're claiming gas doesn't have structure simply because you're going back to a convention.
No.
Are you claiming that it has?
I'm claiming it behaves in a way that does offer structural support. Yes,
right, and we've agreed.
So it has. Matter in general, a concentration of matter can offer structural support.
So what you're saying, Brian?
Anthony,
Just Anthony, on things that it collides with.
Hello.
So let me summarize it. Let me summarize it, Brian, and correct me if I'm wrong. Gas pressure doesn't have structural support, but you can think that it has structural support.
No,
come on,
that's not what. Hang on, no, that's not what I said. No, that's nonsense. Now, that's what that is. That is.
That's what I heard.
Exactly. That is what he said.
I'll say it again, right?
Go on then.
It has already been accepted that liquids and solids have will offer structural support and have structural support, right? It has also been claimed that they press, right? Now gas also presses, and I can see the same effect with a tinfoil boat, right?
Yep.
Fair enough, on a concentration of sulfur hexafluoride, it's a man-made, whatever, right? But a helium balloon, I can see the same effect of support happening, right?
Yes.
A structural support happening.
No.
Well, hang on. If I can show the same effect with solids, liquids, and gases, and I can even probably show it with plasma, then I can say that there's structural support happening due to that.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
So we can agree that
Anthony
the gas is
demonstrated
giving us support. Hang on. We can agree that the gas is giving us support, right? And the word to describe that support would be pressure. However, by moving it to structural support, that is exactly the same as saying, well, gas pressure has structure. It doesn't have any structural support, but you can think that it has structural support. It's exactly the same as what George Musa did.
Exactly, I agree.
No.
Can I
if
just
you're
add
going to
something?
claim that liquids and solids press and offer structural support, but gases only press and they don't offer structural support, then you've got to show how they don't do that.
Because they don't have any structure.
Why?
Anthony, would you call? Can I ask a question? Would you call?
Anthony demonstrated it.
Okay, we had the first time.
Would you?
We had the first time.
Demonstration, and then
Hold on, I just want chocolate. Just chocolate.
Would anybody call the gas molecules underneath the tinfoil, the how they're arranged? Would anybody call that? I guess. What am I trying to say? The arrangement of the gases underneath the tinfoil.
No.
That's giving it support.
The word you're looking for is homogeneous.
Right. But it's giving the concentration, the arrangement of the gases underneath that tinfoil is giving it its support.
Correct.
Arrangement.
But is it structural support or is it support?
Support, just support.
Well, structural needs a concentration.
Stick with
So
the
if
word
it's not
Yeah,
structural support,
but at that moment, it's the arrangement of the molecules that's giving the tinfoil that support, right?
No,
No, it's not the
this is
arrangement. They
point
have
in
no
gas
arrangement. They're
behaviour.
completely random. There is no arrangement. They're random. Randomly ordered. The arrangement's not structured in any way.
No, their
Yeah, but it's just like
arrangement
a
is
pool of little
irrelevant,
bulbs.
right?
Yeah,
The
I have a question.
arrangement in this situation is not adding the support. The way they are arranged is irrelevant. It's the number of collisions that's providing what we're debating is support. It's nothing to do with the arrangement. There is no arrangement. They're all moving randomly in different ways. So they're not arranged in any way. The thing that's keeping it there is the simple fact that their randomness makes it hit.
You're only responding to the disequilibrium.
We all agree with the
That's-
term support. Let's focus on the term structure. That's the bit where there's a disagreement.
I use the word structural, not structure on purpose.
Structural.
Now, a concentration of matter can support another concentration of matter. That is a fact.
Yeah, and we'd agree with that. But we'd agree with that. But you didn't. Hold on, Brian. Brian.
It gives structural support.
Yeah, until you strap that on the end, we'd agree with you.
But that's the thing, you see. What I claimed was a very good description, and that's what I claimed. And I can show the effects that I'm claiming. Right?
Brian, it's a very good description.
Look, forget about it. Forget it. If you don't leave me speak, Anthony, sorry.
I don't agree with you. I'm trying to interject. You're saying that
but you're not leaving me. How can you interject when I haven't finished saying? You can give me a moment to speak. Am I jumping over you all the time? Give me a moment to speak.
Go on then, go. Please be concise.
I would have had it finished and all if you had left me. A concentration of matter is a concentration of matter, regardless, right, of the phase. It's a concentration of matter. And a concentration of matter, right, I describe it as being able to offer structural support to another concentration of matter. Because even if it's moving around, that I don't know if it is because I don't see it, whatever it's doing, right, it has enough density, there's enough density of matter within that concentration to give structural support to another concentration of matter. That is my claim, and I can show that.
That's purely virtual. Has nothing to do with actual structure. That's only a model.
It's incorrect, though. Hold on. Well, it is incorrect.
Hang on, stop.
Hold on. So if you're going to describe one gas as having a capability of being described as structural support because it can support a different entity, well, then that would also apply to a different gas and it would support the other gas. And it doesn't. It just diffuses through it. So that's wrong. Your description's flawed.
Let me respond.
No, it's
Come on,
not.
please.
I'm speaking about a concentration of matter. I said concentration of matter.
Right.
Regardless of the phase.
Brian, come on, I gave way, and you've talked for a long time. Let me just respond.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Anthony. That's my bad, actually. Go ahead, Anthony.
Your words were, structural support is a good description of what's happening. And I tried to rebut that by saying it's limited to solids and liquids because gases don't have any structure. We agree with the word support, but when you put structural in front of it in respect to gases, that's where the disagreement comes. So no, it isn't a good description unless we're talking about only liquids and solids. When we're talking about gases, it's not good enough because it doesn't cover gases.
How do you know?
I disagree definitionally.
Because gases don't have any
even if we're going to take the concept of gas molecules being parts of some volume when it's contained, when you look at the definition for structure role, it says relating to the arrangement of and relations between the parts or elements of a complex whole.
Yep.
So the way he's applying it is fine.
Doesn't apply to gases though, because there's no arrangement with gases. Nope. They're always moving freely in all directions.
They don't have structure. They don't have an arrangement. They don't organize themselves in relation to each other.
Exactly.
It's always a mash.
Can any of you demonstrate this?
But if I
you can't demonstrate order
Hang on
in
a second.
gas.
Don't turn that back on me. You're making the claim. It's your claim. All these things are your claim.
No, there's no organization in gas.
Hello. Can you not hear the chaos? The 3 people from Discord that have just decided they're just going to talk through the top of this. Can you not hear the chaos? Clearly, you're not going to get your point through when you do that, whoever's doing it. All 3 of you.
Brian, when Adam said that you've taken everybody's guns away, that's when I said earlier on in the conversation that it's been reduced to nihilism, because if you're going to deny the conventions because we can't prove them, that's fine. But then you have to accept that your convention that you're describing doesn't exist either. So we are reducing everything to everything becomes baseless and that nothing can be known or communicated. That is textbook nihilism.
Why do I have to accept that my one can't be demonstrated? I can demonstrate what the effect that I'm claiming that I'm calling structural support.
Not the effect. Not the effect. Stop. Hello? We can all see the effect. That's not a problem. So when you say, well, I'm just describing the effect, yeah, that's no problem either. You're utilizing language to create a convention to describe it, and you're saying your description's reasonable. We say, well, we feel our description's better because it doesn't apply to homogeneous nature of gases because they don't have one. Now, that is, by definition, structure. They just don't have it. Now, you're saying, well, yeah, but within my convention, it's fine. Within your convention, you can't show it. That's unreasonable.
Well, no, because you need a concentration of matter to have structure.
No.
That is true. You can't have structure without a concentration of matter. You can't.
No, that's bullshit.
But it has nothing to do with structure in itself.
I can stand on concrete, but I can't stand in midair on a pebble.
Concentration of matter doesn't give you structure. It gives you pressure. Concentration of matter that's held together with a form, like liquids and solids, that gives you a structure. But gases don't have that, Brian. That's the point.
But you keep saying that gases don't have that, but the point is that the claim that gases don't do this and gases do that are all coming from a descriptive model.
Brian,
that's the problem.
Prove the structure of gases.
You can't use a descriptive model.
That's not true.
To debunk my
prove
description.
The structure of gases.
I can show you what the effect that I describe as structural support.
Yeah,
I can do that.
With gases, you can't.
Yeah, okay. Hold on. Let's just do it. Hold on. Let's just try that with Brian. Let's just flip it around, put the show on the other foot. Okay, we can show the effect with pressure, Brian.
You can show the effect, and you can call it pressure.
Yeah, like you can call it structural support. I'm just doing the exact same thing you're doing. Now tell me that I've got to show you mine, but you won't show me yours.
You can call it pressure if you like. I have no problem with that. But I don't describe it that
way. I
way.
could call it invisible gnomes.
Earlier, you said you
that
like
from the
pressure.
beginning.
Yeah, stop. Sleepy Warrior's got him. Hold on, the conclusion's coming. Go ahead, Sleepy Warrior.
Earlier on, you said that you don't like pressure. And
Correct.
all of this conversation has resulted in you saying that you didn't like pressure.
Yeah, I don't. I never said I did.
Yeah, he said he didn't like the word pressure, but he agrees that that's what it is. He just didn't want to use it.
Exactly.
If you want.
No, hang on a second now. Now, definitely do not stop this. I was very, very clear earlier on that I don't like the term pressure or pressure support. You can use it, but I don't like it as much as structural support.
So then
I like structural support because it's more intuitive. That's why it's a better, more. Hang on, let me finish. It's a more intuitive description. So I can't stop you or Nathan or Chocolate or Adam or anyone in Discord using the term pressure. I can't do that. But what I can do is make the decision inside my own brain to use the term structural support and not pressure. Because I don't like
when you say intuitive, then what you're saying
when
is
we have
you would
gases
rather
in a
use
bottle,
that.
I think you 3 should just talk straight through chocolate. Maybe make it 4 of you. Maybe 4 of you. Maybe another person pile in, because obviously this is completely legible and clear to everyone listening as you all pile in over the top of chocolate.
I'm sorry, I'll be quick. I just want to say, like, I think when you're saying you're using that word because it's more intuitive, right? You want to describe that to people who might not start to argue with you about the actual structure of the gas that you're talking about, whether it exists or not. You're just trying to get people to understand what you're saying as far as structural support, right? But I think in this, like, let's say this arena where we are, it might not be the best terminology. And that's what I said like 2 hours ago. Like, just the way you're using the word, like, I understand how you're using it. I get that you want to interchange it with pressure, or you don't like pressure, but it's the same thing. I think it's just a preference of this word in particular. This is why we're having this giant argument.
Okay, but Chopper, I did say there earlier that I have been using that term online, and I've been using it even with ballers when I've been having things with ballers about gravity, and they actually have said to me, a few of them have actually said, well, I like the term is intuitive. They basically told me that. That's ballers.
Yeah, but the problem is with ballers, you're talking about people.
So is the word gravity.
Go ahead.
Hang on, I'm not finished, right? I said from the very start that the term structural support, right, is an intuitive term that everyone can understand. The problem in the world, hang on, you don't know that. When people hang on, okay, you're back to that again. Okay, we'll fix this wagon now. You keep making this claim, but you can't show me what it is that you're claiming. And you never will be able to.
Neither can you.
But you can't today.
Neither can you.
You're not telling me what gases do and what
This is nonsense.
but you can't prove it.
Brian's not even making a claim about structure. He just wants to call it structure. I could call relative density specific gravity because I like the word gravity more. It doesn't actually make a structural point, pun intended. Right?
No.
This is not about structure. This is about you wanting to call it structure, Brian.
That's not the reason.
Don't mix it up.
If you listen earlier, Aaron, instead of coming in half-cocked, the reason I call it structural support is because it's intuitive. People understand it. When I've used that term with people,
Doesn't work
it's
with gas.
That's exactly what I just said.
How do you know,
That's
Anthony? You can't
exactly
show me
Because
what
there's no
you're claiming.
structure with gases, Brian.
Show me what you're claiming. Show me how my description doesn't describe the effect
no
of someone. Tell me how
Show
that
me
doesn't
where the
describe
structure
it.
is with gas.
But you can't show me this structure or no structure with gases. You can't
Because
show
it
me
doesn't
that.
exist with gas, Brian. That's the problem.
Hold on. Stop. Just guys,
Prove it then.
stop. Hold on. Brian just said you can't show the structure or no structure with gas. That's what you just said, Brian.
Can.
Yes.
Right.
Couldn't
well then,
you?
hold on.
No structure.
Hello. Yeah, point coming. So Brian's statement: you can't show structure. That's Brian's point, or no structure. We're going to call it Anthony's point. Yeah, that's why it's a Mexican standoff. You've taken away everyone's guns. All the analogies have been made. But whenever it comes back to, yeah, but you can't use your point or prove your point or justify your point by that standard, that's why. Because if he can't show structure or no structure, neither can you. So to justify it as an intuitive explanation falls on its arse if your justification for why it's not in line with a convention is that he can't show it. Neither can you. So your justification falls on its ass just as quick.
This entire thing, if I may.
Maybe intuitive.
Because we're all under the assumption that there is no way to find, to find any sort of structure or like even detect the separate atoms of gases. How do we know? How can't you just use an electron microscope on gases in ways? Can't it be used for that in very specific circumstances? How do you know? Are gases completely indetectable? Like any sort of structure, any molecular structure in gases using an electron microscope? Does anybody know?
Brian, let me show you.
That was a question.
I know, but
yeah, well, why aren't you basically telling? Like, do you know?
No, I want to answer. Brian.
I can't get you in now with the answer. Scientism was trying to say something as well.
Where's the
I wanted to ask a Sleeping Warrior a question.
Boat,
That's what I want to do.
Let Sleeping Warrior make his response and then Silent Zero. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior.
Brian's claim is that there is a structural support. Now, we all agree that there's a support for the tinfoil boat, but I want him to identify where the structural part of that support is. And if he can't do it, he has to concede that there isn't a structure holding the boat up. Can you do it, please, Brian?
I can describe what I'm seeing as structural
support. Identify with the word.
I can describe it. That is my claim, that it's a great description and people understand.
You can't identify it. So that is the same as saying that it's not a structural support, but you can think of it as a structural support.
Okay, then. You can think of it as not a structural support. Hang on now. Okay, if you want to pull that one on me again, okay. You can think of it as not a structural support. Because I can put that back on you, directly back on you, because you can show me absolutely fuck all
No,
Yep.
When it comes
I
to
don't-
the
you're the one
micro
making
and
the
macro
positive
level of
claim,
gas.
Brian.
Okay.
Fucking nothing.
Okay, this stalemate's had. Okay, I've had enough. Hello, hello, hello. I've had
Can I
enough.
ask my
Right, the
question?
stalemate is over. Whoever's
No,
got
it's
the
not
question,
stalemate.
it is. Right,
It's
whoever
not.
whoever had the question for
Me,
for
me.
Sleeping
It was
Warrior.
me to Sleeping Warrior.
No.
Sleeping
Okay,
Warrior.
so,
Sleep.
Go
It
ahead.
was me.
Go ahead.
Sleeping. Would you say that a structure is able to support something on top of it?
Where's the structure for the tinfoil bolt, please?
Answer the question. Would you say that a structure is able to support something on top of it?
Yes.
All right. That's why Ryan is saying that it's intuitive, or however that word is.
Sorry, this
It's
no.
just it's descriptive. It's not saying that that's what it is.
Sorry, that's
It's
flawed.
all it is.
That's flawed. Where's the top? Hello? It's a gas. It doesn't have a top. What are you talking about? When we argue with ballers and they say, oh, well, it's the stuff above pressing down on a homogeneous layer of gases in their description. Well, this is what we've got here. Oh, so it's got a top to provide support, has it? No, it's a gas. It's got loads of holes in it. What are you talking about? What top? You think the gas forms a top? Sorry, I'm asking Silent Zero. I'm asking Silent Zero. Third time charm. Silent Zero has said it's got a top. What top?
Well, in the example that we've been using this entire time, right? We're talking about that, the fish tank with the gas and the tinfoil on top of it.
Yeah. Where's
And
the
a
top of
block
the
of wood.
gas?
Yeah.
Yes. To make your example make sense, you've asked if it's got a top to put stuff on. Okay, I'm looking at it. Where is that top? Given that I know damn well that the gas is escaping.
Well, you can see the the tinfoil is sitting on top. What is the tinfoil sitting on?
Can you put a brick on top of the tinfoil?
Sorry, to answer your question.
Oh no, it's,
sorry.
it's much denser than the.
Not rhetorical, clearly. What's it? Oh my god. Not allowed to answer then. Not allowed to answer, just a constant stream of fuckwits interrupting the answer. There isn't anything. Anthony's now going to move the picture, of course. No, there isn't anything. There's nothing underneath the tinfoil. What are you talking about? Nothing.
Yes, there is.
So it's magically sitting there.
Right, I asked whether your example included a top. Where's that?
Yes.
To support stuff.
The
Where
edge
is it?
of the gas.
The edge.
The edge of
Gases.
the gas.
Sorry, gases have gases have edges, do they?
In that example, yes.
Everybody else, shut up. Do gases have edges?
In that example, yes.
Where?
You're
Show
seeing
me.
it by the,
Show
by
me.
the tinfoil.
Hello? Can you show me the edge of the gas, please, given that it's inhomogeneous and isotropic and dispersing with entropy? Where's
Yeah,
the top? Where's the edge?
The tinfoil is sitting in it.
Sorry, that's the tinfoil. That's not an edge of gas. Gases don't have edges.
You're asking me to show you invisible gas, Nathan?
You're asking me whether or not it's got a top to support stuff? No, it hasn't. No, it's inhomogeneous, anisotropic, and dispersing with entropy into the gas around it. With enough time filming this tinfoil, it will drop towards the bottom of the tank. Why? Because the gas is escaping. It doesn't have a top.
Yeah, he has a top.
Sorry. No, you're saying, yeah, it doesn't have a top. Yeah, that's the point where I go back to...
Yeah, I say it is.
Yeah. Once you've conceded, I agree, no top. So when you ask Anthony, does it have a top to support stuff in order to reach the prerequisite of being described as structural? No, it doesn't have a top.
It does.
Do you want to show it me? It does. Back to this. You didn't just concede. Does have a top. Where's that then? It's got an edge. Where's that then? Where's that then?
Where the tinfoil is sitting.
That will decrease with time. Sorry. Hello? Just covered this. Maybe you didn't listen. It will drop in the tank with time. Now, that description's entropy. Obviously, I can't show you that because it's convention. It's just a description, right? But fact, there's no top. It's going to drop with time. I know why, too, because the gas is getting out. So given that it's dropping with time, you're arbitrarily ascribing a top at this moment in time. No top. It's dropping constantly. That's what's happening. Fact. Over time, entropy increase. That's not going to stay there floating indefinitely. I assure you. Therefore, when I ask where's the top, and you say where the fuck is your problem?
I'm lagging. I apologize. I guess
I'm still talking. There's no fucking lag. There's no pause. Yeah, when you say where's the top, there isn't one. When you say, well, it's the edge that it sat the tinfoil on, there isn't one of those either. Yeah, planks of wood that have structure, they have those things. Now, yeah, they still succumb to entropy over a very, very, very long period of time. Eventually, you could say it would decay away. But in this instance, that's not occurring. There is no edge. There is no top. There is no structure.
Well, it's due to the lack of capacitance. If you add some charge to it, then we get this in-between state of matter called plasma. And this is where I think we need to be focused, because this is what's going to differentiate solid matter from physical gases and the structure that's Chocolate's trying to pinpoint.
Brian.
All matter has capacitance, resistance, permeability, and permittivity. So we just need to outline in this specific notion what's taking place between those.
Nathan, are you saying that the gas inside of the fish tank and the other in the air are mixing equally?
Yeah, it's called entropy.
Where the tinfoil is sitting?
It's called entropy. That's right.
So you don't think there's a distinction there?
Only in the short term.
Let me help you out there, Silent Zero. Let me help Silent Zero out.
All right.
Silent Zero is saying that the tinfoil is on something, right? It's not falling to the bottom of the fish tank because it's on something.
What's it on, Brian?
Exactly.
Sorry, that's wrong. That is incorrect. Yes, it is falling.
It's falling because the top is open.
Sorry,
open,
so it is so it is falling then.
Right.
So when you say it's
Well,
not falling, sorry, I'm being challenged. You've said wrong, not falling. Yeah, it is. And now you're saying, yeah, okay, it is falling.
Hang on, but you're not allowing me to speak. Right? It's very simple. If you don't put the top on it, right, that gas, just like everything else, will succumb to what we describe as entropy. Right? If you put a top on it and you seal the thing, then that tinfoil will stay where it is.
Wrong. Incorrect.
But if it's sealed, the gas can't get out. It's the density of the gas is going to continually support the tinfoil.
You think that if you seal this, you think if you seal this sulfur hexafluoride up, that the tinfoil will stay at the top forever?
Yeah, it has to.
No, that's incorrect.
But that's the reason it's floating on it.
No, you've got a difference between the air above and the concentrated air below trying to escape, forcing up on the tinfoil. If you seal it, it will reach equilibrium.
But that's not going to change the density of the sulfur hexafluoride.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, you'll have. Yeah. What will happen is there'll be the same amount above it as there is below it. Unlike the less dense, if you want to use that word, gas that's currently above it in lower concentrations. So if you seal it, there'll be the same amount of sulfur hexafluoride eventually go on top of it as below it, and then it will just sink to the bottom. At the moment, you've got a less concentration of gas above it than there is below, forcing it up. But as soon as the sulfur hexafluoride distributes equally around it, it's just going to go to the bottom again.
No, and I'll tell you why. Because if you seal it up right now as it is, then you will have some of the air that's in the room sealed with it on top of it.
Yeah, and
so we'll always have that density differential.
Yeah. So sorry, Brian. So entropy just stops when you seal this up. You're saying that the gas that's in there, that's the less concentrated air that's sealed up with the sulfur hexafluoride, you don't think that's going to eventually dissipate throughout the concentration of sulfur hexafluoride with entropy? That's not going to happen. It'll just stay in a layer.
Well, it will.
Do the air in your tires
Hello? Hello?
Nathan.
Make it totally unlistenable for the audience, I would, Silent Zero. Thanks for that. Go ahead, Brian.
Let's just say that happens, right? And that lessens the density of the sulfur hexafluoride. If the density of the sulfur hexafluoride is still enough to, is still enough to support the tinfoil's density, then the tinfoil, what will happen is you'll have more density towards the bottom of the tank, and the tinfoil may go down a bit, but it won't go down onto the bottom of the tank.
No, that's
It'll
wrong.
go down maybe
It's
from
incorrect.
its position.
It's incorrect. Over
How do you
time.
know?
No, over time, you won't have a. This is where your convention's flawed. You don't have
It's
a
not where my
homogeneous.
convention is flawed.
Yeah, my bad. Like you
It's
just
the
haven't
same
moaned
with
that people
water.
are
Yeah,
because
interrupting
you're
you,
wrong.
Brian. Yeah, my bad. Like the middle of my sentence obviously interrupted the start of yours. Like you've just moaned about it. Okay, so no, Brian. Eventually, the distribution of gases will equalise. It's called entropy. Much as you might not like me not being able to show you this convention I'm using, but it will eventually have the same concentration or mixture of air and sulfur hexafluoride, both above and below, with time, if you seal it.
Wait. If you seal it from where is the
No.
other air coming in to equalize?
It's already in there.
It makes no sense.
It's
what
already
you
in
just
there.
said.
There's already some in there. We're only dealing with the minutiae of the tiny bit that's left in there when you seal it. This is Brian's objection. Try and keep up.
Yeah, but you're missing the point, Nathan. If the density of the gas within there, which is, let's just say, 85% sulfur hexafluoride and 15% air, right? And when that mixes together, right, if the density of that gas is greater still than the density of the tinfoil, then the tinfoil will be supported above it.
Density of the
Or
tinfoil?
up towards the top.
What does the density of the tinfoil have to do with like that? It's the gas above it that creates the offset in equilibrium. Not the
Exactly.
tinfoil. The tinfoil is heavier than both of it.
Correct.
According to what? Hang on. Are we going back to a model or a descriptive model here? Because
No,
it seems that's
no,
what's happening.
just
I'm
no,
not
no, no,
relative
no,
density.
not at all, Brian.
Support
No,
your
no,
claim.
no, Brian.
Yes, you
I just
are.
no. It doesn't matter how many times I say it. No, no. I just know that tinfoil's more dense than sulfur hexafluoride.
Not when it's spread out like that.
Well, a
then you're
solid
dealing
is
with. Then you're
denser
dealing
than
with
any gas.
Sorry, sorry.
Archimedes
Is that being challenged or what? You're going to say that the tinfoil's actually less dense than sulfur hexafluoride? Is that?
No,
Is that...
when it's spread out like that, you're dealing with Archimedes' principle. You're dealing with volume, area, displacement, and design. That's what they're dealing with. That's why boats float. Steel boats, big tankers.
No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. Oh my God. No, that's
I'm
only
not
applicable
wrong.
to. My bad.
If you
Just
notice
my
how the
bad.
whole-
Just challenge me before I've got 3 breaths out. Like you moaned about this
Well,
straight.
you're claiming I'm wrong.
Oh, so what? Maybe I should leave you finish before something that you don't agree with, Brian, like you told Sleeping Warrior 10 minutes ago. 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, or just a lopsided standard that you have?
Okay, I was a bit out of line. Okay, I apologize.
It's not Archimedes' principle. These aren't liquids. They are not forming homogeneous layers, Brian. You're wrong.
No, Archimedes' principle is based on displacement. Volume, area, design, and displacement.
Yeah.
That's Archimedes' principle.
Right, but that's not what's happening. You haven't got one layer displacing another. They are dispersing between each other. Eventually, you won't have any left in this fish tank.
Yeah, if you leave it open.
Right.
Yeah, but if you seal it,
So hold on. How does that then relate to Archimedes' principle?
won't
If one's
escape
if one's dispersing into the other, Brian, how can you translate that to Archimedes' principle?
what do you mean? I'm talking about the tinfoil and the
Yeah.
gas.
Yeah.
If you put
Yeah. Eventually, if you seal it, it'll get to the bottom, Brian, because it'll have the same amount of gas
Why
above
would it
as
go
it
to
has
the
below.
bottom?
At the moment, it's got a differential, less concentration of gas, because you've pumped a high concentration of very inert gas into a fish tank. But it's still just escaping. But eventually, when it does, or if you sealed it, entropy would definitely rule here. And eventually, the more dense
Hang on.
tinfoil will just reach equilibrium, and then eventually there'll be the same above as there is below, sulfur hexafluoride being less dense than tinfoil. It will sink.
Why is if you seal that tank right now, right, and you have that tinfoil floating on that, right, and whatever bit of air is in there, if that air, right, if the air, right, mixes in with the sulfur hexafluoride, or when it does, let's say when it does, mixes in with the sulfur hexafluoride, if the density of that gas, right, is enough to support, right, the flattened out piece of tinfoil,
No,
right,
it
then the
isn't.
tinfoil won't
Okay.
come to the bottom.
I tried last
Oh
time
my
saying no
God.
5 times. Arwin will pipe up while I do it this time,
Yeah,
no
so,
doubt.
but know what this is, right? Know what the problem here
I haven't,
is.
I haven't
I'm
answered
speaking
you.
about- Well,
No,
okay,
it won't. I haven't actually answered you. No, it won't, Brian. The tinfoil's more dense than the gas.
Yes, that's true.
So it
when
will
it's
sink.
spread out like that, when
It
it's
will
spread
still
out like
sink.
that and the gas has enough density.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It will still sink. If you seal
Well,
this up,
if it's
it will
going-
sink. It's more dense than the gas. Currently, there's a high concentration of gas below and a lower concentration at atmospheric above, causing the disequilibrium that forces it up temporarily as the gas escapes. If you seal it up, it will reach the point where there's the same amount of gas above as below and no differential. It will then sink.
Exactly.
If there is enough density of the gas, if the gas has enough density, even with the mixing of whatever air is left in there, right, then it will support the tinfoil up above it.
Wrong.
Really?
It's not
Incorrect.
No, that's
Or-
ridiculous. If you
well,
put
I'll give-
holes
I'll
in
give-
this
I'll give
aluminum
you an
foil
example.
boat, it's also gonna sink right there and then. Because
I'll give
it's
you
not
an-
just floating on top of the gas.
Yes, that's a good
it's
example.
having a boat effect.
Exactly.
That's what's
But Brian,
keeping it up.
Brian, let me
missing
just
the
try one
point
more.
here.
Let me just try a different way. When you're floating something on water, you've just got the water below, right? When you submerge it, you've then got water above and below. Now, because water's bonded, it doesn't diffuse into the air above. Therefore, you maintain your equilibrium on the water if you're a boat. Unlike water, gas diffuses. So as soon as you seal this up, it diffuses. Therefore, unlike water, it's the equivalent of the water being the same amount of water above the boat as below the boat, after the water diffuses with the air, which it doesn't do. It's got a certain amount of structure by way of bonds that stops the air, stops the water being the same amount of water above the boat as below the boat. Now, when you seal this chamber, unlike water, the diffusion, that's entropy, will take place, causing it to all mix around both above and below the tinfoil. As that process happens, it will sink because it has more density. While there's a disequilibrium with it open, you've got a high concentration of gas below and a low concentration of gas above. That's why you've got this effect. Sealing it up isn't the same as water because it's inhomogeneous.
Right.
Okay. If you fill that tank with a different gas, sorry, you go Arwen, I go after.
Thanks. Yeah, if you seal it up, it's gonna all mix in quicker. Right now, it's kind of like the hexafluoride that is escaping is spreading in all directions, so it's not really mixing up as much with the entire body of air above it. That's why it takes much longer. If you literally put a glass seal over that entire thing, it's going to mix it much quicker because the amount of air it has to mix in with is much less than the entire room. So it will drop down much quicker. Nathan is correct.
Okay,
I think you guys need to look
right
at
now.
the phase. You guys need to look at the
One
phase
second, please.
emission with this gas and
Hang on.
see what's taking place, because you can't just make assumptions without testing all the potential variables.
What do you mean? Do you
Yeah,
think it's
well,
going through a phase change?
hang on.
Hold on, let's
I haven't-
explore this claim, Brian. What do you mean? Are you suggesting that this sulfur hexafluoride is going through a phase change?
Yeah, I think there's a phase emission taking place, which is creating this phenomena that we see. And until all of that is essentially from a move from charge to discharge, is when you see it lose its permeability effect.
Really? So you're suggesting that sulfur hexafluoride turns into a plasma at room temperature?
No, not at all. I'm not saying that at all.
So what phase change is it undergoing?
Well, technically, anytime you have this change in phase, you're going to have what we would call, I guess, entropy.
No, you missed my question. What change in phase?
Right.
Well,
what does it change into?
Go ahead, Arwen.
No, I'm asking you. You've said when it undergoes a phase change. I've clarified, yeah, phase change. And I've said, what phase change? You said, well, when it goes through a phase change. No. What phase change is occurring? I asked if it's undergoing a phase change to plasma at room temperature. You said no. So what phase change?
Well, I'm saying we need to test and see if there is a phase change before we just make these
Ugh.
assumptions.
All right. Should we test to see if... Hold on. It could be unicorns. Have we tested to see if it isn't? Why on earth do you think it is undergoing a phase change?
Because phase would be consistent with the change in what this gas is doing.
What change? What change?
You guys are saying it's going down and it's going up.
Not saying anything.
So
It's
which way?
what change? Don't tell us what we're saying. What change are you inferring? From what
the
do you infer
direction
there's
of the
any change in...
gases.
I'm just trying to lead you to tell us why you infer there's a phase change. That's it.
Because you can't get away from it. It's always going to be there when you're dealing with gases. There's going to be a phase depending on how much charge is in that gas, and it's going to seek to discharge itself.
What are you babbling about? A
into
phase change
homeostasis.
from solid to
the
liquid, from
thing I
liquid
think-
to gas, from gas to plasma. That's a phase change. Now you're saying everything's got a phase. Yeah, it's a gas. What phase change? Are you just interjecting just to sound smart?
No, there's
What phase
there
change?
should be.
Right, next
should
question.
be-
Next question. The answer I require is what phase change? Don't tell me about everything being in a phase or that it's always applicable and there's got to be a... What phase change? What are you babbling about?
It's capacitance. It's charge.
What is?
Hmm?
What
Do
is?
you know what a phase change is? I don't think you do.
Saying its capacitance is changing. Its charge is changing.
What charge? What capacitance?
Everything in physical format has capacitance and voltage applicable to it.
He's talking about phase in terms of power, like alternating current, single phase, three phase, not phase as in what you're
But where is
describing
any of that
from solid to
happening in
gas.
this particular instance? Where is that happening in this particular instance? Or
Yeah, and
That's
anything
why-
with
I think
matter,
that's
like
why
I
we're a
told you,
little bit
undergoes
confused.
capacitance, resistance, permittivity, and permeability. Can't get away from that.
no, that's great. But is there a phase change happening in this particular example with sulfur hexafluoride in the tank? There is.
Yeah, all
Where is it?
gases.
No,
All
no,
gases
there's
have
not.
capacitance.
No,
Mixing
where
up
there's
is it?
not.
terminologies. He's mixing it
No,
up.
there's not. There's no phase change going on here. Right? Why did you even butt in
That's what I'm trying to
with your
establish.
capacitors and your reductionist? There's no phase change. Phase, do you know what? Define phase change in matter. That's what I thought.
Well,
Now,
give me a
can we
We
get
were
back to the
talking about
discussion?
matter. We were talking about matter. He was talking about electrics. We were talking different fields of phase change. It had nothing to do
Yeah,
with the
it had
subject.
nothing to do with the argument. Can we get back to it? I've been listening to it for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
It's great, isn't it?
I think so.
bet you're loving it, eh?
I love it.
I'm
I think this is
loving
a
it.
great discussion. We've
I
all
think this is
relatively
fun.
kept our temper reasonably in check. You know, no one's lost their temper too badly with anyone else. I've told people to shut up, but that's just my job here. You know, don't take it personally. But no, I think this is an excellent
I did
conversation.
with Anthony.
I think this is a good conversation. Brian's got some good points. He's held his own. What's the problem?
It's good to know I'm not the only one that interrupt everyone constantly.
A lot of passion here. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of research that's gone into Brian's position. Right? There's a reason he wants to do this. He's got a logic behind it. He's exercised it and had good results with it. Why wouldn't he defend it? It's total bollocks. There's no
Nathan.
structure to gas. But I mean, he's perfectly right to defend it.
It has been very interesting.
I truly
rebuttal-
believe if you seal that tank, that tinfoil is gonna float on that gas.
Yeah, you're
without
convinced.
moving.
Well, so go show it. Show it. You know you know the tinfoil is going to drop eventually, right?
Yes.
If it's sealed,
No, if it's sealed.
maybe I don't know. If the percentage is more of the thick gas, it's never gonna touch the floor.
No, it's going to drop.
What? No,
You think
you
so?
have to
Yeah,
seal it up
no, I
like a
know so.
balloon in order to keep it afloat in there.
Right,
As
there's a-
long as it's
I'll tell you what,
open,
let's get back
it's
to
Can I
the
going
summarise the
original
problem?
argument.
I've
Brian,
summarised it once. I'll
Adam's
summarise it
admitted
again if I'll be allowed. The problem is that there's a misconception that gases behave like liquids. They form homogeneous bonded layers, and you can float stuff on them. You can't. This effect, temporary though it may be, is going to succumb to entropy as the gas disperses. Now, liquids, at a phase change level, before we get into it, you can apply this. At a very tiny level, yeah, you've got a certain amount of the liquid with the sun coming out, turning into a gas and going around it. But it isn't water that's going around it. It's a different state. Now, in this instance, with time, the gas will encompass the entirety of that more dense tinfoil, and it'll sink.
Yep.
Unless you seal it up like a balloon.
Have you guys
You disagree? Okay.
And
well, why don't you try it out? See what happens.
Hold on, Daislo, hold on. I disagree, Nathan, because if you see a balloon, a helium balloon, like, and you put it on a table, you hold it, it's gonna stay up there for as long as the air is inside of that balloon. The only way you're gonna start making it go down again is if it loses air, the helium, I mean. So
But
I
it's a
think the same
closed
thing is gonna
container.
happen inside of that tank.
Right.
Yeah,
A balloon is a
and the
closed
fish tank with the
container.
gas, what is gonna be? Arwin, it's gonna be a closed container.
No.
No, this boat is not a closed container, buddy.
The tinfoil's not a balloon, right? If you filled that tinfoil, and instead of a foil container, you turned it into a balloon and filled it with a normal gas at atmospheric pressure. In other words, the air that's in the room, and then shoved that in with the sulfur-hexafluoride, then you've got a different story, because you've managed to put a barrier between the lighter, just going to have to use these words for simple terms, gas, and the more dense gas. Well, at that point, you've got a completely different scenario. You know, you're not having the entropic effect because there's a barrier stopping it. Whereas with the tin foil, what's stopping the gas, that would be the sulfur-hexafluoride once this is sealed, going over the top of it? Nothing. In fact, it will absolutely do that with time. It's called entropy. But if you believe that it's got a structure, then you've got an equivalence like water where it will stay structured below it indefinitely. It's never going to flow round the top of it like gases do.
Okay, Nathan.
Well, I truly believe that, Nathan. And I would like to see that happening. Maybe I'm gonna do, if that gas is available for anybody in the public. Maybe I'll do that experiment.
Well, let me just try and ask you. Okay. Let me just try and ask you a question, and just step away from what we've discussed for the last couple of hours, and just ask yourself this: do you honestly believe that tin foil is less dense than gas? Is that honestly what you believe?
Over one, like, and the expansion of the entire tinfoil over that gas, yes, that's why it's floating.
You think that the foil is less dense than the gas?
That's not what he's saying.
That sheet of tinfoil, yes.
No, he is, Ryan.
Yeah, but hang on. Silent Zero, his first language is not English, so you can't jump on him for everything like that. What he's trying to say is that when it's spread out like that, that's why it is being supported.
Exactly.
Hold on. Okay, Brian. So would you say that in that case that we're talking about that it's about the surface area, the force over the area then?
That's the Archimedes part of Archimedes' principle.
Pressure.
With liquid.
Oh, good lord.
It's part of Archimedes' principle. Yes. It
Right.
doesn't matter
Okay.
if it's a gas or a liquid. It's the same effect.
No, because it's going to disperse with time, Brian.
Yeah, but to say it's dispersing with time, it's going to come back as something else. Water disperses as well. Everything is subject to entropy. Gases are just subject more faster than water, than liquids and solids. Everything is subject to what we describe as
Why aren't
entropy.
you guys talking about this?
Okay, can I just talk to Brian for a second? Yeah, it's just me and Brian. Thanks. No, I've tried to explain several times, Brian. The difference is that with the liquid, right, with time, I made this disclaimer last time. Yes, there's a phase change because of the sun coming out to a very minor degree. But that phase change means that the liquid that's currently below the boat is going to encompass the top of the boat as a gas. Yeah? Now, in this case, with your high concentration of gas below and your less dense gas above, i.e. there's a disequilibrium effect with the boat floating on that, when you seal the container, the gas will completely overcome the top, bottom, middle, all of this tinfoil. So you've suddenly now no longer got a difference between the greater concentration below and the lesser concentration above. It will equalise. At which point, it's just down to which is more dense, tinfoil or gas. And I assure you, the tinfoil's more dense, as much as you're defending Silent Zero's understanding of English. I think he gave a concise enough answer for me to understand that he thinks tinfoil's less dense than sulfur hexafluoride. That's what he thinks. It isn't, and it will absolutely, upon the equalisation of this sulfur hexafluoride in this tank, sink to the bottom, because it's more dense.
So I understand what you're saying, but just saying, Nathan, that if we seal this up, right, what's going to happen is whatever bit of air is left at the top is going to integrate with the sulfur hexafluoride, and the whole lot then, what's going to happen is it's going to flow in over the top of the tinfoil. Yes?
Yeah, they show this when they pour the sulfur hexafluoride on top of it, Brian. You know, in the demonstration when they get the cup and pour the top of it? Well, that's because suddenly you've got you've got a differential between the less dense below. You've suddenly got the more dense on top because he's got a cup and poured it on. Well, you know what, Brian? Without a cup doing it, it'll do that by itself with time.
Okay. Now, if we take away the air above a ship and we take that away and we take all the air away from above a ship, right, and we put water on top of it, what's going to happen to the ship? It's going to go down. But that doesn't change the fact that the water under those conditions is supporting the ship the same way as the gas is supporting the tinfoil.
No, not in the same way. So in the same way as you've got one layer above with water, that's air, and one layer below, that's water. And the difference between the two, at the point of equilibrium for the boat, that's the wood and all the calculations that go into making it buoyant. Well, at that point, with time, you're never going to reach a point where the water is surrounding the top of the boat. It's not working its way around unless there's a phase change to a different phase. Whereas with gases, that does happen. Over time, the top's going to be encompassed just by way of entropy. And then the effect, like when they pour the sulfur hexafluoride on top, will take effect. You've sealed it up, and eventually it all reaches equilibrium. There's the same concentration of gas mixture, whatever's left from the normal air, or even if you had totally concentrated sulfur hexafluoride only, you pumped out every bit of gas from a chamber, made it a complete perfect vacuum, and then just filled it with sulfur hexafluoride. If you had a bit of tinfoil in there, it wouldn't move an inch. If it was on the ground, it wouldn't suddenly start floating up because it's in sulfur hexafluoride. You've got to be joking.
Yeah, no, okay. If we fill the tank with a different gas, not sulfur hexafluoride and not CO2, something like, if we fill it with oxygen, will that tinfoil ever sit on, like, let's say, float? Will it float there, or will it never go? Will that never happen and just fall through?
I don't know if you could reach.
Hang on, please. Leave me and Nathan Dweller, please. Just a second.
The unique property of sulfur hexafluoride is that you can get it in a high enough concentration in this tank. Now, I know oxygen isn't the heaviest of gases. I don't know if, hypothetically, you could create a scenario where you could get enough concentration of oxygen, pure oxygen, and it would be more dense than the air around it. I don't know if that's theoretically possible. I assume it's a specific property, because it's very inert, this man-made gas, that they can show this demonstration by having it sealed within a container and having it slowly escaping.
But that brings me back to concentration. If you can get a dense enough concentration of matter, then it can support another concentration of matter.
No, it can't, because with entropy, it will stop supporting it. The water will always have the boat floating on it, right? That's always going to be the case, pending weather or disaster. The boat, in theory, will just sit there bobbing along all the time, right? It's always going to be less dense than the water it's sat on. That's not the case here. Entropy with this gas, because of the effect of diffusion, that's the dispersion of one gas into the other, all around, will mean that you don't have the same effect achieved with consistency. In other words, with time, this is a very temporary effect that they're showing.
Yeah, you won't have the same level of consistency, but that doesn't change the effect.
It does, because you're saying the effect
Remember,
is structural support. Well, structural
but that's-
support implies some sort of consistency to it, as opposed to ever decreasing support that's waning with time.
Well, that's everything, Nathan. Regardless of what it is, everything disappears with time, even if it's concrete and steel. Hang on. You talking about the length of time that gas will support that tinfoil, right, is no different than me talking about the length of time a solid building will stay underneath me. Like, okay, one will happen faster than the other, but that doesn't change the effect. It's the effect that I'm describing. The effect I'm detailing. It's the effect I'm trying to describe. That's why I use the term structural.
Yeah, okay, and I'll agree with you. On a vast mass scale, I can't disagree with you because entropy rules throughout everything. Therefore, if I'm going to describe you not being able to say that this has structural support, because in a very short period of time the gas is going to diffuse, well, you can say, well, at a molecular level, the concrete is succumbing to entropy, just much, 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 much slower. And you go, okay, technically, you're right. That concrete or wood board that I said, all things being equal, you've got a boat, let's just stick with that rather than concrete, floating along. Well, no, the boat will succumb to entropy also and eventually sink because it's also going to succumb to entropy. But that just is a much slower version of entropy. So therefore, you've got me. I can't fucking get around this now, Brian, because they're both entropy, aren't they?
They're different. They're very. You might want to use an overreaching phrase such as entropy, yeah, but they're very different entropic effects that you're using the overreaching effect for. One, yeah, is gas behaving naturally. Now the other is stuff eroding over time. It's got nothing to do with a state's behavior, which is what the entropic effect is when we're talking about gas. So that you can
I'll
use
give you a valid
entropy, but
example.
no, they're not
I'll give you a
comparable.
valid example. Well, I'll give you one. The boat in water, the water eventually is going to evaporate, and that doesn't take too long. And that's a natural process of entropy.
It's not like I dropped that disclaimer in 3 times when I made the example. It's not the same as the water going all the way around the boat when it has a phase change and turns into gas. Whereas the entropic effect when you suspend something on gas that's trying to escape from a fish tank, if you seal it, is that the gas surrounds the entirety of the tinfoil. At no point will it be comparable with the water surrounding the entirety of the boat in the same manner through entropy. The only way you can compare it is with phase change. Now, I made that disclaimer. That's now 4 times. Maybe bloody someone will throw it back at me like it's their disclaimer.
I don't think that gas is on top of the tinfoil, Nathan.
Say again? Silent Zero?
I don't think the heavy gas is on top of the tinfoil. I don't know if that's the video where the guy grabs a teaspoon and then pulls some and put it on top of the tinfoil, and then the tinfoil start going down.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is, it is your belief that the layer of sulfur hexafluoride will remain a layer, correct?
Yes.
Wrong. It's called entropy. Gas has got gaps.
Neither you or I have seen it.
Sorry,
right?
you're going to tell me.
Make claim of this.
Sorry, you're going to tell me that we have puddles of gas now.
Well, yeah, that's why we have a gradient, don't we?
No, we have an anisotropic mixture of gases. It's mixed up to the same quantities and proportions all the way to the top of Everest and beyond. We don't have layers of gases.
How do you quantify that?
Excuse me. You're just wrong. Gases don't form layers. That's the problem here. There is a misapprehension that gases are like liquids and form layers. They do not. They disperse throughout each other. Unlike water, which isn't suddenly engulfing the boat and dispersing throughout the air as liquid water. As a layer, it stays as a layer because it's bonded together. Gases which are unbonded diffuse throughout the area of volume they have to fill. So if you seal up the area with the tinfoil in, the gases diffuse, that's entropy, throughout the area they have to fill. It's a law of nature. Now, if you're going to challenge that law of nature, I think we've finally come to the end of the conclusion that actually closes this book, because that is something you can observe always. Not describing the cause. Describing the effect is where I can justify saying the effect of gases always filling the availability of volume, that's entropy, would be the reason why we don't have an equivalence when you say structural support. One would be the equivalent to the structure provided by the bonds between liquids and gases, and it's not equivalent to say that when they go through a phase change, it's the same as the water as a whole encompassing a boat, like the gas will encompass the tinfoil as a whole through entropy. The two are not comparable. Therefore, to say structural support is wrong because of the bonds that aren't in application when you're talking about a gas. I think it was Sleeping Warrior that first concisely tried to get that through.
I would have to disagree with that because you're part of the reason, and leave me finish now what I'm going to say. Part of the reason is that you're going back to a model of a descriptive model, number one. Number two is if you remove all the air, right, above a boat, all the air from above and around the boat, right, out in the boat, that's on water, then you're creating a vacuum. So that water then will evaporate. It will start to boil and evaporate. So that boat will go down.
Yeah, you're obviously going to appeal to this phase change between water and gas. Without there being any phase change, Brian, please.
Hang on.
Please.
Leave me finish. Leave me finish.
I heard.
Let me finish. Right.
I heard you've described the phase change.
I'm describing the effect. That was the whole point of it. I said it's intuitive. People, more than at least 85% of people, I say it, they get it. They understand it. It's intuitive. It may not be specific, but it's intuitive. People get it. They're not being given a whole textbook.
Yeah, thanks.
Of
it's not like I haven't heard that 25 times. Thank you.
Yeah, like
the difference is. The difference is.
something
Thank you.
is stopping-
Thank you. I heard that it's intuitive. Thank you. The difference is when
did
you
hear
have
the
that
rest of it? Okay.
without phase change, the gas will encompass the tinfoil. That's a fact. That's how gas behaves. Now, if you're saying you can't appeal to that because it's a convention, you've got to show it to me. No, I absolutely know without question, because it's just a description.
That's not the part I was talking about.
Because it's just a description of something that occurs always. Gas will fill availability of volume. So, in other words, for you to challenge me based on the fact that I'm using a convention, you've got to use the part that I'm describing, that would be gas filling volume, and show that that doesn't happen. My argument is now that the gas will fill the volume. Therefore, equally, when shown, when you pour the sulfur hexafluoride on top, it sinks. Well, once you seal the container, the entropic effect of gas filling space will, it's a law of nature, take place. And the only way you can get around that is by showing me gas not filling space. For your layer, homogeneous layer, to always have it floating on. Now, I know that gas does fill space. If you can show me it not doing that, in this case, you can do it with the sulfur hexafluoride and the tinfoil. Fine. Show me gas doesn't fill space and forms homogeneous layers.
I never claimed homogeneous layers.
You are with structure. That's what structure is.
Absolutely not one time ever in this whole discussion or at any time did I claim homogeneous layers. That is a straw man that was thrown at me several times, and you have to just throw it at me again. I never, ever claimed that. What I claimed was a description of an effect.
Okay.
And I've
Okay. If you're not saying that it's a homogeneous layer, right? The tinfoil has got something below it, supporting it, right? Well, what's got the structure?
The density of the matter.
Oh, the layer? The homogeneous layer with structure that you're not describing?
At that present time in that fish tank, there is a more dense concentration of matter than outside the fish tank if we're talking about gas. And that's why the tinfoil is on top.
Yeah.
Floating, let's say, rather than top. Floating.
So
that's
layer.
Why that is happening.
So layer with structure.
Well, it's contained like that. When it's contained like that, then most of what's in that fish tank will be a separate type of gas than what's outside it.
No, it's got gaps.
It's just like the water with the salt.
If that was,
Nathan. It's just like. Oh, sorry.
I said most.
No.
I said most.
No. Well, most means that it's not universally applicable. So when you say structure, it's the layer below.
Well, at this present moment, the gas that's below the tinfoil, right, in concentration, is a higher density, right, than the gas, has a higher density factor than the gas above it.
Yeah, still diffusing
That's
into
why
it
it
though.
happens.
But I will still
Yeah, it
always.
is. I never.
Yeah, I will still see it diffuse into that gas. So therefore, there isn't the effect like with the water where it's got a bonded structural support, because it's constantly diffusing into the air. So to say, well, this section of it immediately means you're categorizing it into a layer, giving it a homogeneous nature, and saying, well, that concentration has got structure, but it hasn't, it's diffusing. Now, the only way you can get around that is to say, no, gas doesn't fill space.
No, that's not the case at all, because it's what's in there has a higher density. It's a higher density of matter than what's outside the tank. It will integrate with the rest of the air in the room if it's left off to do that. Essentially, that will happen. All gases will all integrate, right? That will happen. I don't disagree to that. I never disagree to that. But that tin foil is being supported from underneath. Otherwise, it would be at the bottom. That is a fact. It's there, happening. I don't know what else to say. There has to be a certain density of matter underneath it, structurally supporting it. If you don't like the word structurally, you can use whatever word you want. I like the word structural because, as I said, people take to it.
Right. In order to have structure, it's got to be, or you could think of it as being constructed, or likewise deconstructed when you apply your example with entropy to a board of wood or some concrete. But deconstructed or constructed implies that you have a physical bonded structure. And as far as I can ascertain through laws of nature, the gases which are dispersing can't be ascribed with those conventions, because when you describe it with structure, you suddenly have a homogeneous layer. To have the structure that you're describing to be constructed into the layer to supply support, you're saying, well, the construction process is you pumping it into a tank. Well, on the one hand, I can understand the analogy, because it does show that by way of effect. But when you use the word structure, its implications leave you with the taste of solids and liquids rather than gases.
Well, it's all matter. All matter. Like, I mean, in the end of the day, what structure?
That's composition.
Structural. What is?
That's composition.
What is?
That's composition fallacy.
What's a composition fallacy?
Now, when you say it's all matter, then they're all going to act the same. No, composition fallacy.
Taking something that applies to part and applying it to the whole. Correct?
Matter does give a concentration of matter that's more dense will give support to a concentration of matter that's less dense. That happens, even if it's only temporary support. Yeah. So I'm not wrong.
You just used a fallacy.
How did I use a fallacy when matter is matter?
Fallacy of composition. We just went over it. Rewind it.
I don't need to rewind it. Matter.
Yes, you do. You just used a fallacy. I just identified it.
Is gas matter?
I just identified.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no, he's taking you through the steps of the fallacy. Just go with him.
He's gonna do it again. Go
I
ahead.
know. That's what I'm saying. Go with him.
Do what again?
Ask him the same question again, Brian.
Originally,
is gas matter?
Is gas matter? Yeah, is gas matter?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Water is matter. Solids is matter. Plasma is matter. It's still matter.
Yeah.
It might have different phases, but it's still matter.
No. It's still matter. And?
It has different phases. Yeah, I didn't say.
It has different behaviors. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Perfect. That's going to be my cue to round out. So with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming Streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.